humidity. I like to explain this with the glass of water, 15% in Loveland, so our glass is 15% full. When you're looking at a wildfire, the more or the higher your relative humidity, the better, because this is when you look at the spread. So I just told you wind direction is changing. What we're seeing right now is very marginal relative humidity. When you're at 15%, embers can travel, and instead of getting smothered and losing their heat, they can actually maintain it. And that's what you're seeing right now towards Loveland. This is behind the boundary, though, behind where gustier winds are. It's a lot drier air. So that is headed towards Loveland, and we'll have to watch closely about the impact that has. But we've just about checked all the boxes, 90s to 100s over the eastern plains. That's the first box that we check for the ingredients for fire weather. Low relative humidity levels. This is for your fire growth, the spread of the fire. And then gusty winds also aid that as well. So we are checking 2 out of the 3 boxes. We just don't quite meet the red flag criteria for our wind potential. The other thing that we watch closely, moderate to severe drought conditions. This is just when you look at the big picture. Your timber, your brush, some of your grasses, they are bone dry. They will really dry out for the next 7 days as we stay dry. So that is a concern. The other ingredient that's in place is our temperatures. Loveland's officially at 97. That'll get updated within the next 5 minutes or so. Longmont's at 101. It's all this boundary that's moving through that's really more favorable with some of the fire weather. For today, upper 90s, low triple digits. For tomorrow, triple digits could be on tap once again. The last thing I want to touch on is the red flag warnings stay to the northwest, but we still have elevated fire concerns for I-25. It's a bit deceiving. We don't quite meet the red flag criteria, but we do still support fire growth. We have the dry air, just not quite the wind gust. Throughout the next 7 days, guys, we stay relatively dry, about a 10% chance Thursday and Friday. So this week will feature heat, dry conditions, a whole lot more talks about fire concerns. We've got to use some common sense, some safety. Maybe stay away from the barbecue this week as it just looks dry with very little, if any, and I mean any, relief in sight through the next 7 to 10 days.
All right, Joe, thank you for that update. We appreciate it. Let's get back to Dylan Thomas, if that's where we're going right now. You're a reporter in northern Colorado. Dylan, you're providing us this video and these pictures of what you're seeing so far. Any more drops of what you're seeing? Any more response to what you're seeing in terms of the fire as well?
Yeah, we actually just watched another airdrop of fire retardant. I've also seen some water drops as well. I actually need to go ahead and tear down. They are asking us to evacuate this area, so I have to go ahead and send it back to you guys, and we'll touch base soon.
Okay, Dylan, stay safe out there. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. He'll be back throughout the day to give us more updates in terms of that fire right now. I want to go back to Joel Hillen at the desk. You have more information on evacuations. Again, if you're just joining us, this fire that's been burning for 2 hours now, west of Loveland, it's called the Alexander Mountain Fire. There are evacuations in place for both people and animals at this point, and there's road closures as well. Joel, keep us updated on what the very latest here.
Yeah, so a lot of information for folks who are in either the mandatory or the pre-evacuation area. And let me break this down for you and see if we can get you some useful information that's going to keep your family safe as we do this. Here is the neighborhoods that are under mandatory evacuation right now. This is Storm Mountain, all the way through Palisade Mountain into the south, Pinewood Reservoir, all the way to the south along there. I know this is yellow, but this has now been moved to mandatory evacuation. That color will turn red here shortly. These are the neighborhoods north of Carter Lake Reservoir. This area that is under a voluntary evacuation order is just to the north of Devil's Backbone open space and kind of borders along all of that. You can see these areas are under a voluntary evacuation, but do not be deceived by the yellow there. That is under mandatory evacuation. Now, where do you evacuate to? There are 2 centers. So one to the west that is in Estus Park. This is the Estus Park Events Complex. That's off of 1125 Rooftop Way. To the east, you're going to have a wildfire evacuation center at Namaqua Elementary School. They're in Loveland. That's at 209 North Namaqua Avenue. So one onto the east and one onto the west. Well, what do you do with animals? That has been one of the big questions that is being asked of emergency responders there, and this is the response that they have given. Animal evacuation information. Large animals can be evacuated to the Ranch Event Center and Complex. That's at 5400 Arena Circle in Loveland. If you have small animals, animals that you cannot care for, such as dogs and cats, etc., those can be evacuated to the Northern Colorado Humane Center, NOCO Humane. So there is the phone number that is being provided that you call for the small animals, 970-226-3647. And I want to come back here and show one other phone number for you. This is the Joint Information Center for the Alexander Mountain Fire. This is going to be able to provide additional information for folks who are under mandatory evacuation. What do I do with my animals? Where can I go to sleep? Where can I go to find information? That number is 970-980-2500. They want to clear 911 for immediate emergencies only. This is the number that you want to call if you need information. Here is, again, a look at the evacuation area. You can see just how large that is as the fire continues to burn. Right now, it is at 247 acres, or at least that was the case at 12:45 when it was last mapped by air from the U.S. Forest Service. They have one local helicopter that was able to get there quickly, but now they have planes on the scene. One copter that is on the scene is ours, that is capturing right now as planes look to make drops. They have been focusing on the northwest side of that fire as we've watched them drop over the last hour as we've had rolling and continuing coverage on this. You can see the plane now entering that area to be able to do another drop. They want to find containment of this fire and to keep it from spreading like the East Troublesome or the Cameron Peak fire, that we saw back in 2020. We talked with one neighbor in that area who said, and was under mandatory evacuation, her name was Linda, and she said she remembers the Cameron Peak fire and was evacuated then as well. This huge column of smoke being the signature of this fire, rising almost straight up into the sky, and it can be seen as far north as Fort Collins, where Fort Collins police said folks were calling 911 and were asking people not to call 911 to report the fire, that Larimer County was in fact in charge of the fire and was battling this blaze. These live pictures again coming in from Copter, but we do have our Dylan Thomas on the ground along with Dale Atchison. Dale, we talked to earlier, he said, I'd just been in that neighborhood doing wildfire mitigation stories. That's an important story that we've been telling here in our Colorado communities, all the way from Evergreen north now to Loveland and into this area. Mitigation, the little bit of work you could do, can save your home. And this is why it's important. You get to these moments, it's too late. You need to get your stuff and you need to go and move from that area. How are you supposed to get out of that area? There's just one Storm Mountain Drive, which is accessible to the Cedar Creek, Bobcat Gulch, and Storm Mountain neighborhood. If you are in any of those neighborhoods under the mandatory evacuation, we ask that you leave immediately. They have cleared off Highway 34 to all other traffic so that you can access onto Storm Mountain Drive and access onto US 34 to be able to evacuate your family and your animals to get out of there again. If you have questions as to where you can evacuate your animals or you need information, you can do that by calling the Joint Information Center at 970-980-2500. That information is, that hotline is going to be staffed and available for folks to receive information who need that. That is to keep 911 and other emergency numbers free. Because this is burning just to the north of the Big Thompson Canyon there, right to the mouth, the peak there is the Alexander Mountain, and that is why it has now been called the Alexander Mountain Fire, burning at 247 acres right now. Brian and Michaelia, and these images from Copter showing just how dangerous this is for folks who live along that to the west of where this fire is burning. They're now shrouded in smoke and with the threat of flames approaching.
Really just moving quickly.
Yeah, moving very quickly, and those resources are moving quickly as well to get a handle on this before the wind does start picking up later this afternoon. Joel, thank you. It is affecting a lot of people, including homeowners and business owners as well. We have Christy Laynard on the line right now. Christy, can you hear me? This is Brian Flores here at CBS Colorado. Thank you, Christy, for joining us. First off, are you and your employees safe?
Yes, everybody's been evacuated and we are at home.
Okay, that's great. Christy, I understand you own a business in Loveland. You had to evacuate, is that correct?
That is correct. At the time, you could visibly see the fire, and we have a few residents living behind our store. And they came up to the top of the hill where our store is located and said, "Get out now." And within probably 5 minutes, you could see the visible plumes coming over the mountain, and everybody decided what was best was to lock up and leave.
Christy, how concerned were you? I mean, I understand that the store that you own has gone through a couple other things other than fires. I believe floods is the other thing that you've been dealing with. But how concerned were you from seeing the smoke and, from hearing the evacuation notices going out?
I think this one in particular is pretty concerning. It's very near where our store is. Highway 34 is really the only thing that's keeping us from the flames at this point. So, just depending on what the wind does, could really determine what happens. But we kind of have 9 lives up there. We've survived 2 floods and a couple of other fire threats. So fingers crossed and prayers that we'll survive this one as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
had
ahead.
some other viewers call in and say, this is reminding them of the fires back in 2020. It was very reminiscent of that, too.
Yes, very reminiscent. It seems like every couple of years it's something like this that happens, and it doesn't get any easier each time, I will say.
Yeah, I would imagine. Christy, we always talk to our viewers and, tell them, have that go bag ready just in case of emergencies like this. You were at the business at the time and you told your employees to evacuate. So what does that look like from a business owner? Is there anything different from that? You just close up shop and just be like, hey, we'll keep in touch and, stay safe,
Yes.
or what?
Yeah. First and foremost is the safety of everyone. So
Sure.
Literally, it's turn the lights off, close the door, and get out. That's it. I mean, nothing is worth any human life, and so it's just hightail it down the canyon and get to safety as fast as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. How close was the smoke to your store location?
Very close, probably within 100 yards. I did send some pictures in. You can see our truck in the forefront and the flames. I mean, it was very close.
Yeah. Were there firefighters nearby your business as well? I mean, obviously they're sending firefighters to the exact scene of this fire up in the mountains, but was there anyone nearby just to kind of keep the businesses intact just in case this thing got even closer?
We did notice that there were smaller truck vehicles, unsure what they really were. At the time, there was lots of action happening. And so in terms of actual fire trucks, no. But again, we evacuated before it was mandatory. So I think maybe it was just people that had seen or heard that were just getting up there to see what they could do.
Yeah, Christy, did you have any issues getting out of there? Was it pretty congested? Or?
No.
Okay. Good.
No, not at the time. I mean, it was very early on, which we're grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. Christy, thank you for your time, and we appreciate it. We continue on and hope and pray for safety for you and your employees and your family as well throughout this. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it, Christy.
Thanks so much.
All right. So let's check in once again with Joe Rook right now in the Weather Center, tracking this weather pattern right now. A few things are concerning here, Joe, as we mentioned. Obviously, it's going to be the wind, but also really the lack of moisture. There really isn't any over the next few days.
Yeah, you could go as far as 7 to 10 days. We're looking at about a 10% chance for rain as our highest potential. Let me look at our wind gust loop, and what you do see once we get closer towards the current hour, winds are just beginning to increase with that strong westerly flow. There's a bit of a boundary moving through, and we've been telling you in real time we're watching a bit of a wind direction change. This could be some good news that we're now going to be stuck with just about westerly, southwesterly winds for the Loveland area. What's not necessarily good news is that the intensity of this will just continue to increase. So here's another way that we can visualize our wind potential. This is in Loveland all the way throughout the morning hours tomorrow. Let's start looking at our wind direction. Westerly just about across the board, and that is thanks to the stronger gusts now officially locked in, but that also brings concerns because winds were calm at the start of the fire. We'll put that in quotes, but now they're ramping up in intensity. Red flag criteria would require gusts up to 25 miles per hour. That won't happen. What you then see once we get to about 3 a.m., the winds calm down very briefly, and that's where some direction changes. So throughout the next few hours, wind potential will be there. The other factor we need to discuss, we need to continue talking about in real time, still at 15% relative humidity, a slight increase for Lyons and Longmont. What is this? This is moisture in the atmosphere. Think about an ember getting blown in the wind, because now we have the wind component. And when you have this very dry air, an ember can actually travel, and rather than getting smothered in the air, it can stay hot, and that's how little hot spots can jump across a highway. and XYZ, and right now it's very marginal, 15%. If it drops just a bit more towards 12%, well, it will raise an eyebrow. The other ingredient that we have, so the wind gusts, they're marginal. Relative humidity is marginal. Temperatures, they are there. Loveland up to 96 degrees, 99 in Longmont. The heat is here in full force, really rapidly drying out all of the vegetation. As far as highs today, tomorrow, for the week ahead, guys, we are looking in the mid to upper 90s. The drought intensifies. We told you limited rain chances. A lot of ingredients you don't want to see right now, guys. They are coming all together.
All right, Joe, thank you so much.
And we'll be keeping a close eye on this fire all afternoon for you. We'll be right back.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a breaking news update from CBS News Colorado. There is a wildfire in northern Colorado, and it is growing quickly.
The Alexander Mountain fire burning in the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon. Evacuations are underway. We're going to get to Joel Hillen on the desk. And Joel, information coming in quickly. This fire spreading quickly as well.
It is, and we have a large area under mandatory evacuation. So this is the information you need to know right now to keep your family safe if you live in this area. If you are in the mandatory evacuation area, please evacuate immediately, as this fire has spread and is spreading out to the west. This is what it looks like. So you've got this huge area from Storm Mountain all the way down to Crater Lake Marina down there. And this area, even though it's yellow, is now under mandatory evacuation. That is all along the edge of Devil's Backbone open space. This is a voluntary evacuation area, and you can evacuate to one of two centers if you need to. So this one to the east is the Namaqua Elementary School. They're off of 209 North Namaqua. To the west, you have the Estus Park Events Complex off of 1125 Rooftop Way that you can evacuate. If you need to evacuate animals, I want to give you the information to do that. You can call 970-980-2500 for information. That is the Joint Information Center. That is the phone number there. And they say that large animals can be evacuated to the Ranch Events Center and Complex. That's in Loveland. And then small animals, if you need a place for them, dogs, cats, etc., they can be evacuated to the NOCO Humane Society there. We understand and we have learned that resources that are being used to fight, and this is from the Upper Colorado River Interagency Fire Management, these are the latest images that they have been sending via their Facebook page to inform the public from Mesa County there. This is a fire that's been burning on the western slope. It's called the Kings Canyon Fire. That's mapped at 213 acres. Heather Marsh, who is with the BLM there in the Upper Colorado River District, joins us now on the phone. And Heather, I understand that you are now diverting resources from this fire in order to get to the Alexander Mountain Fire.
So we actually, we still do have some resources, but yes, the Rocky Mountain Coordination Center has diverted all of our fixed-wing air tankers to the Alexander Mountain Fire. But we still locally have our air attack and the Type 1 and the Type 3 helicopters that are actively fighting the Kings Canyon Fire.
And it looks like as of about 30 minutes ago that you have 10% containment. Do you feel like a loss of these resources there on the western slope are going to cause that containment level to drop, or do you feel like you have enough crews to be able to take care of the situation and contain it?
I think at this time, what I'm hearing is that we believe that we've got enough resources available to keep working that fire to get it contained.
So what are the resources that we're talking about that then are headed now to this Alexander Mountain Fire? What do they look like and how are they used?
So we're looking at 4 single-engine air tankers and 1 large air tanker, and those are used to drop fire retardant on the fire.
Okay. And so they drop retardant along the fire lines, something that we're seeing. And we understand that we have one that's been mobilized out of Colorado Springs, that is Air Tanker 10 from Colorado Springs, that is already en route, if not over the fire right now. What is it that you guys expect for the coming days for the Kings Canyon and the western slope? It's not going to get, we don't have any moisture moving into that area. We'll talk about the fire danger there on the western slope.
So, weather is unpredictable, and we're just actively working what's in front of us. We feel at this time that we have enough resources to manage the fire as it is right now, and we continue to keep a close eye on the weather and what it's doing.
Heather, thank you so much for joining us again. That's Heather Marsh from BLM Upper Colorado River District. We appreciate your time, and we hope you and your crews stay safe as you continue to battle the fire out that direction.
Great. Thank you so much.
Again, here along now, Michaelia, as we look along our side of the state, those resources, which include 4 single engine tankers and 1 large tanker that's going to be dropping retardant down onto that fire, a lot of resources now heading towards this fire, the Alexander Mountain Fire, and away from the western slope, but it sounds like that they'll be able to keep that under control as well.
Thank goodness, Joel. Thank you so much. And definitely our hearts are with everybody impacted. And our team coverage continues with Dylan Thomas, who is your reporter in Northern Colorado. Dylan, you've been out there since the beginning. You actually saw this fire from your home. What are you seeing out there now?
Yeah, Michaelia, I was looking out my window this morning. I was like, there looks like that's some smoke coming off the mountainside. And now that has absolutely erupted into this massive fire right here behind me here in Larimer County. As you can see, the smoke continuing to billow up into the air. Now, if you were with us just about 15, 20 minutes ago, you saw that I had to quickly power down my live shot and move to another location. That wasn't because the threat of fire was reaching that far east to Loveland. It's actually because they may have to shut off some of the water intake for the city of Loveland. That, according to some employees that I overheard speaking, which also confirms what I had received some texts on earlier from the day from some sources as well, saying that apparently Loveland has a water intake a facility up in this area, and they're worried that the fire can now impact that. Therefore, they were asking us to leave the area I was at, which is where they actually had some valves for the city of Loveland's water intake, and they said they were considering having to shut those off and have to start pulling water from the city of Fort Collins and Horsetooth Reservoir in order to keep keep water flowing into Loveland residents. Once again, to give you some context as to where we are right now, I'm with photojournalist Kevin Hartfield on the western side of Loveland toward the mouth of the canyon for US 34, the Big Thompson Canyon. We haven't seen visible flames in a little while, but we did just see another fire retardant drop just about 5 or 10 minutes ago. Those two single engine aircrafts that you overheard I overheard Joel Hillen talking about. Those just flew over our head and were heading east. It looked like they might be heading toward the Loveland Fort Collins Municipal Airport, potentially to refuel. But we have also seen some water drops from helicopters. I believe it's called Glade Mountain Reservoir, I believe is what it's called. And that's just on that side. And it looked like they might have been pulling water from that and dropping it. There was a while for the pretty much first hour of the fire where the smoke was blowing to the east, showing that the winds were headed east. And that's when we saw a fire retardant drop on the west side of the fire. Then suddenly the flames started shifting to the west as the wind blew to the west. And then for about 5 or 10 minutes there, it shifted to the south, showing how the wind was really making this a difficult situation in order to navigate. But for right now, we are just on the west side of Loveland, where, as you can see, there is still plenty of smoke billowing from this area. This is the Alexander Mountain fire, which once again started right around 11:30. We broke that news to you this morning, right around 11:30, and a lot of resources still making their way through to this fire. It's my understanding that the Sheriff's Office and the Loveland Fire Department are the two agencies really leading this effort right now.
And Dylan, do we know how quickly that fire might be growing? I know even you had to move your live shot location because you got evacuated as well.
Well, yeah, as I noted earlier, that was due to the water. They needed access to the water, not necessarily the flames moving to the east. But we do know that it is growing, especially with the wind blowing in this area. I've actually had to put my microphone underneath my shirt to conceal it from all that wind that's actually blowing. Right now, it seems like it's coming from the north to the south, potentially, which also can pose a little bit more of an issue when it comes to responding to this fire. It's not as consistent of a response, given the fact that the wind was blowing to the east. Then it shifted to the west, then to the south. Hopefully, it gains some consistency, and they can also gain some ground.
We certainly hope so. Dylan, thank you so much. We know weather is a big part of the situation. Joe Rook in the Weather Center for us right now. Joe, we know it's dry and really bad conditions for a fire to be starting.
Yep, critical fire weather,
Yes.
certainly across much of the state. We're going to go through a little checklist here to show what we're seeing and what we're not. So temperatures, they're certainly there, 90s and some triple digits. That's really fueling the surface of the atmosphere. Low relative humidity. We'll unpack all of this in detail. That'll allow embers to spread rather than getting put out as they're lofted into the atmosphere. Now, the gusty winds for a red flag warning, you want gusts in excess of 25 miles per hour. We're looking at gusts up to about 23, 24 miles per hour. Give or take a mile per hour. We are just one ingredient away from the red flag warnings. The first is the heat. Already 96 in Loveland, 99 in Longmont. I do think we have several hours of warming still left to go. So as far as our forecast high today, holding with about 98 in the Loveland area. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some 99 triple digits. And really what's that doing? It's rapidly, snap a finger, drying everything at the surface, helping to aid some of the growth. The other thing we've been watching in real time, and we're still at 15%, is the relative humidity. We have seen a bit of an increase for Lyons and Longmont. You're just joining us. What is relative humidity? It's water vapor in the atmosphere. So think you have a glass of water. Lyons and Longmont, it's about 7-8% full. In Loveland, 15% full. So this is our fire growth potential. Let's say an ember is lofted by the wind into the atmosphere. Well, when you have high relative humidities, our map would be green, it would get extinguished, it would get put out. But when it's very low, it maintains its heat, and that's how a fire can hop a highway. This is one of the ingredients that you actually need to watch closely. And what's 15% mean? It's very marginal. Once you get to 12%, we can be very confident for the red flag warning. So we're there. 15% is essentially close enough. So this is definitely one of the ingredients we don't like to see in that ballpark. Now, the other ingredient that we watch will be our winds. Winds play a big role. And one potential good news, yes, wind speeds will continue to increase. But Dylan was telling you about all the wind direction shifts that we saw. We should be locking in to a more westerly flow. Now, that's not necessarily good here because that is air going down the high country into the foothills. So then you're seeing friction and some warmer air rapidly going towards the surface. What I can tell you, though, we're stuck with this direction and we're stuck with marginal winds. That'll be below 25 miles per hour until our bit of a next boundary approaches by 3 a.m. So it will certainly be a busy evening with this fire as winds, we step it up a notch. Maybe one good way to look at it, though, the wind direction is now sustained from the west, which can help with some of the firefighting efforts. Now, for tomorrow, heat once again in full force. Triple digits will be on tap for Loveland, so we already know that ingredient will be in place. High fire danger, what do we watch? No open burning. Be careful with any of your sparks, especially the grill. It is hot, it is sunny, it is dry, so it may be tempting. But we just don't see rain potential for 7 to 10 days, so we got to work together. Everyone needs to use a bit of caution because the wind gusts are here, the heat is here, and we are dry. Now, one quick thing I want to unpack. Here's the Loveland Airport. We've received just over 10 inches of rainfall. On average, you're at about 10 1/4 inch of rain. So we're there. We should be looking good, but we've picked up that rain in chunks and earlier in the year. So it's really not what we want to see because of late we've been dry, the dog days of summer. What's that mean? Moderate to even severe drought conditions. That's north and south, the severe drought, but moderate conditions for Loveland. This means some of our timber, some of our plants, some of our grasses are very dry, and this would in turn, guys, support some of our rapid fire spread.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. We're going to head back out to Dylan Thomas. It sounds like your reporter in northern Colorado. Dylan, do we have Dylan?
Another update here from right here behind me. As you can see, the smoke's continuing to fall, to rise to the sky, I should say, from Alexander Mount. I was just talking with my coworker colleague, Kevin Hartfield. We were trying to determine roughly how far away we are from this. And I looked it up on a map, and Alexander Mountain is only, as road distance-wise, about 5 to 6 miles away from where we are right now, showing you how close this actually is to the city of Loveland. Now, in the same breath, I should be careful. I do not want to suggest that there's any imminent current threat to the city of Loveland because the fire is still quite a bit away and definitely at least one ridgeline away from the city. We should note US 34 completely shut down in both directions. US 34, you can head right about to the dam store, which is at the mouth of the canyon, but just it's technically south. But if you think about it, east of that is where the road is shut down because this fire is continuing to burn on the north side of the Big Thompson Canyon, which is US 34, which stretches to Drake and then beyond that to Estus Park. This all started right around, I'd say, 11:30 in the morning. Once again, I looked out my window and I'm fortunate to have a view of the mountains. And when I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, this does not look good. And in that time, I would say since I first saw it, it has at least quadrupled in size, the plume of smoke at minimum. We were talking earlier about the wind direction. It was blowing east originally, then it shifted west, then it shifted south. Now it looks kind of like it might be a little stagnant up there, at least compared to down here in Loveland where the breeze is blowing ever so slightly. I just finished talking to some business owners here on the western side of Loveland. They tell me that they are staying cautious, but at the same time, because of the size of their facility that they own, they are being willing to open up their property if the county or the city asks them to those in need. I don't know if our photojournalist Kevin Hartfield can see, but there's an aircraft flying off to the right there. I can't tell if I believe it's a plane, not an helicopter. Oh, it is a helicopter. Thank you, Kevin. We have seen them doing water drops. I believe they've been pulling from the Glade Reservoir area and then heading back toward the canyon to drop the water. Earlier, I mentioned that the Big Thompson River is right there. It might be kind of difficult to pull water from there just due to the canyon, but at the mouth of the canyon, pretty much where this fire is, there are some access points where a helicopter could reasonably reach into that area as well. I have personally seen 3 fire retardant drops already. I'm sure there have been more because a few times I've been looking away or I've been in my vehicle, but they are actively trying to battle this fire to keep it from spreading west toward the Drake and even further Estes Park area and even to the east as well, which would then make its way into Loveland. Heaven forbid it were to make it that direction. So we will continue to bring you guys updates. One thing that we are going to try and keep some attention on is I just reached out to people who work in the water industry up here. It's my understanding, I haven't heard from Loveland directly themselves, but I heard some employees talking about how they were possibly going to have to shut down their water intake because right there the Big Thompson River is behind us and they pull a lot of their river from there. They have pump stations, et cetera, up in that area that they may have to shut off due to the clarity of the water or lack of. And that would mean they would have then to move over to the Horsetooth Reservoir, pull from there, which is the city of Fort Collins and a few other entities that pull from there. That's not rare, though. We know that during the Cameron Peak fire, the city of Fort Collins, the city of Greeley, and others had to shut off their intake and start pulling from other water resources. And they have this deal where they can trade off water at a later point to make sure everybody in the front range, which is behind the camera to the east. So let's think of the cities like Loveland, Fort Collins, Windsor, Greeley. All of them should be able to continue to have the water service they need. It's just that the city of Loveland might have to shut off their intake and start diverting from Fort Collins, all as a result of this fire.
All right, Dylan, thank you so much. We're going to get to Joel Hillen on the desk. Joel, we know that you were telling us as well about all those resources that are headed out to the fire with your last live hit there.
Yeah, so we just heard from the U.S. Forest Service, and they say that air support has arrived on scene. So they have 4 helicopters. We saw one of them making a drop there from our photojournalist, our chief photographer, Kevin Hartfield, there with Dylan Thomas. We know that there are 3 Type 1 and 1 Type 3 helicopters amongst those. 1 large air tanker has arrived. That's air tanker number 10 out of Colorado Springs. This huge column of smoke has been the signature of this fire since it was first spotted and reported. That smoke could be seen as, from Fort Collins 911, saying that they had received calls into their call centers for this. We understand, and we just spoke with Heather Marsh with the BLM from the Upper Colorado River District, that the Kings Canyon fire, which is now 213 acres and 10% containment on the western slope in Fruita, that fire, they are diverting some resources from there to this fire, which is the Alexander Mountain fire. So that'll be 4 single-engine tankers and 1 large tanker. There is also 1 Type 1 that is coming from Wyoming as well. These live pictures coming in from Copter. You saw there from our CDOT cameras that can be seen from the road. This is going to be something that all folks are talking and asking about as they are along this area. But it is the folks that are in the evacuation area from Storm Mountain all the way to the south to Carter Lake Marina. Carter Lake. I may have said Crater Lake. I want to make sure that you hear that correctly. And then to the north, near Masonville, you've got Devil's Backbone open space right along that ridge, that there are pre-evacuation or voluntary evacuation orders that are in place. But those at Carter Lake, just to the north of that, are still under voluntary evacuation, but mandatory evacuation for areas in Pinewood Reservoir. And all of these areas, as you take a look at the map now that showed the evacuation. And then on either side, it's flanked by evacuation centers. So to the right, you have the one at Namaqua, and to the left here, which is to the west near Estus Park, or in Estus Park, you have the Estus Park Events Complex. What do you do with animals? Well, if you have large animals, those can be evacuated to the Ranch Events Center and Complex. That's in Loveland. Small animals, they can be evacuated to NOCO Humane. And that phone number is listed right there, 970-226-3647. Although the Joint Information Center, if you are evacuating, is going to be the place to go. Let me highlight that phone number right now for you, which is 970-980-2500. And these evacuation centers being run by the Red Cross. And we have John Seward from the Red Cross who joins us now. John, how many people are you seeing in these centers, and what do people need to know that are evacuating right now?
So we have our volunteers. 90% of our workforce is volunteer, and we've sent them there to multiple shelters here throughout the area, but mostly the elementary school there in Loveland. And we're encouraging folks that are evacuating to evacuate quickly, but also bring any essential documents, medications, those types of things if you have time. Certainly don't return to an evacuated area if you've already evacuated. There at our evacuation center, our staff are on site there to provide care and comfort to those that are evacuating. But, right now we're really in just waiting and seeing type scene. We are working with our government partners, the Sheriff's Office, with our fire protection authorities, and we'll continue to monitor that information. We're going to feed everybody that's there at the evacuation center, lots of snacks, lots of food there, and we'll make sure that we have a safe place for folks to gather, get information as we continue to learn with everyone else.
John, part of the great spirit of Colorado is the heart of Colorado. Our viewers are among the most generous, and they want to reach out and they want to help. What can they do? What do you need right now? Does the Red Cross need at these shelters? What can people donate, and how can people donate?
You know, we're early in this, right? So we don't know exactly what our needs are. Best place to get that information is on our website. That's www.redcross.org/Colorado. That's where you can really learn more. We're always looking for folks' help, always looking for the generosity of the American people of Coloradans, because you're right, that is our style. That's what we do here in Colorado. But right now we have what we need. We're continuing to monitor this situation, and we'll keep everybody posted as needs continue to change.
John, thank you. This is John Seward from the Red Cross. They have evacuation centers set up, including at the elementary school there in Loveland that we've been telling folks about. That's at Namaqua Avenue. And we continue to see crews now laying down that slurry. This shot from photojournalist Kevin Hartfield, who is out there with Dylan Thomas, who is your reporter in northern Colorado. These pictures have just been amazing. That huge column of smoke extending northward skyward rather, into the air. And now it looks like it's shifting a bit. But if you're in that evacuation area, Michaelia, it's just one of those situations where if you're under mandatory evacuation, grab your stuff and go. Highway 34 is closed, but not to folks who live in that area. So if you're trying to get out, don't worry, you'll be able to get out through Highway 34. They have just withheld all other traffic so that folks can get out of there.
Reassuring news for a lot of people out there. Joel, thank you so much. We'll be right back.
This is a breaking news update for you from CBS News Colorado. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Lee. There is a wildfire we know in northern Colorado. The Alexander Mountain Fire burning in the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon. We know several evacuations already underway. Our team coverage continues with Dylan Thomas, who is your reporter in northern Colorado. Dylan, you've been doing a fabulous job updating us on everything that's taken place there. You responded, headed out as soon as this fire broke.
Yeah, it was right around 11:30, 11:45. I was on the phone actually with one of my colleagues, and we were talking about my other story for the day, and then I looked out the window and saw a much smaller at the time version of what we are now seeing right here behind me, this plume of smoke that was rising to the sky just west of Loveland. This is the Alexander Mountain Fire, which has been burning once again since right around 11:30 in the morning and has since then just grown and grown. I will note it was right around 12:45, 1 o'clock when I was actually seeing the most flames. You could visibly see the flames coming up off the mountainside, the ridge side, from east of I-25, let alone where we are now, which is west of I-25 near the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon. We have not been able to visibly see as many of the flames since then, but what we have been able to visibly see is the fire retardant drops. There have been at least 5 of them that I have seen myself, and there have been several times where I've had my back to the fire or I've been in a car moving location, so there might have been more since then. But we have also seen several water drops as well from helicopters. We've seen some of those single-engine tankers flying above us as well. But this fire, for those of you who are just now joining us, west of Loveland, north of US 34 on Alexander Mountain, which is pretty much the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon. Unfortunately, this area, it's not rare to have fires, sadly, in this area. I actually spoke with somebody who was standing watching in awe earlier today, and he told me this was sadly bringing back flashbacks reminiscent to the Cameron Peak fire, the state's largest fire on record, which also burned right here in Larimer County, but that was back in 2020, burning several thousand acres. It was the first fire in our state to burn more than, I believe it was 2,000 acres, and it burned for months on end. We're fingers crossed. Hopefully this one won't burn nearly as long as that. Hopefully they'll have it well contained by the night's end, especially with all the resources that we've been seeing of late. Once again, we've seen air tankers. We've also seen helicopters dropping water. And we should note US 34 closed in both directions, understandably so. And one thing that I've also been trying to dig more information on is the water issues here in this area. As I mentioned, the Cameron Peak fire, that actually caused quite a bit of issue when it came to water as well. That was with the city of Fort Collins, the city of Greeley, etc. They had to shut down their water intake because the Poudre River was in that area, and the water was so murky with all that ash and debris that it was actually poor quality and they couldn't intake the water anymore. Well, it's my understanding that there's some potential threat to Loveland's water supply at this time. Some sources of mine text me saying that they heard that there's a facility, maybe a pump station of some sort near that area. And then I actually spoke with some City of Loveland water employees, and they were mentioning that they needed us to leave our previous location because that's where they have some of the valves for the water intake for the Big Thompson Canyon, and they had to be there in the chances that they may have to shut that off. But the good news is that that shouldn't really disrupt any water when it comes to those who live in the area. It's my understanding that they can divert from Fort Collins down to Loveland, and that water flow should remain and water pressure should remain when it comes to your house. But we'll continue to bring you the updates here at the Alexander Mountain Fire west of Loveland.
Dylan, we know whenever a wildfire like this breaks out, so many people and so many resources have to work together to make sure that everything is taken care of. Thank you for making those phone calls for us. We know, of course, weather, a big part of the situation. Meteorologist Joe Rook, our first alert forecaster Joe Rook, is in the Weather Center with us today. And Joe, I know we've been talking so much about how dry it's been. Even though we've seen some moisture in the past, it just is difficult right now this time of year.
Yeah, without a doubt, a few days goes by, you erase any of the impacts from the rain. Let's get some hyper zooms going. So by looking at Dylan's shot, looks like the westerly, southwesterly wind component based off the smoke's direction has set up. And the wind gusts still, to this point, have not increased substantially. You're looking at gusts anywhere from Loveland, where it's calm, towards Estus Park up to about 20 miles per hour. Red flag criteria, we'd want 25 mile per hour gusts. Now, one thing that will play a factor is exactly where on the ridge or the Alexander Mountain this fire is, because as the air is sinking on the backside of it, where we're looking at the burn, it's accelerating and heating up. So that does play a role in some of the fire growth. And then the other thing we watch is futurecast winds. Watch the wind potential just continue to increase. Fast forward here through about 4:30. Our fire is east of Estes Park, west of the Loveland area. We're within a few miles per hour. That's your key takeaway here. 25 is for the red flag warning. We're at about 22 to 24 miles per hour. On and off, not sustained throughout the night tonight, but you do see some heavier isolated pockets through the evening hours. Let's get towards tomorrow. It's calmer winds to start the day, but then what we do see, a real rinse and repeat will be on tap. Wind potential again up to about 20, 25 miles per hour. So now is the time to get all the containment that we can get. We've also been talking an awfully lot about the relative humidity. This is continuing to change in real time, and it actually is changing in this latest update for the better. Another bump up for Loveland. We were at about 14 to 15%, now 16%. What is relative humidity? Think water vapor. available within the air. So the lower the percent, the greater fire growth would be supported. Think of a glass of water. It's 16% full in Loveland, while it's only 8% full in Longmont. So you got a big fire burning, all these embers lofted to the atmosphere, and where there's not much water vapor to squish these embers, well, that's how fires can spread. So it's very marginal right now, but it continues to increase the amount of vapor in the air. That's something we pay close attention to. This is a big ingredient for fire growth. Another big ingredient is temperatures. Karen told us we've picked up the rain. There's been no shortage in Loveland. In fact, they're up over 10 inches for the year, less than a quarter inch below where they should be. But it hasn't been recently, and temperatures 5 to 10 degrees above average. Same holds true for both today and tomorrow. Let me get you outside right now. 99 in Longmont. Loveland's at about 95 to 96. And likely just west of that, we're looking somewhere in the low to mid 90s right on top of the fire. That gives you an instant support or boost for some of the vegetation drying out. So not necessarily a good thing. Your highs for today will be 98 around the Loveland area. So some of your brush, your more thin vegetation near the surface, let's go with, really goes day to day based off some of the fire conditions. Let's do a little checklist here. I just showed you all the ingredients. The temperatures, they're there. The relative humidity, it's very marginal. And the same holds true with our winds. We are very close. We're about 1 to 3 miles per hour below the red flag warning threshold. So we checked 2 boxes, not quite the third one. So don't be fooled. Red flag warnings have not been issued across the Front Range or the Eastern Plains, but there still is an elevated fire concern, and one of those reasons comes in the form of our drought monitor. Moderate drought conditions for Loveland, severe drought conditions up north towards Fort Collins, as well as just south towards Boulder. We've picked up the rain, but not recently. There hasn't been a nice, healthy, slow and steady rainfall. And what's this mean? Well, a lot of your timber, a lot of your brush, some of your grasses even will quickly, very, very quickly be able to catch. And this is a bit concerning because it's much of the Front Range that is included, so some of our fire ingredients will be there. What else is a concern? Well, let's go beyond the forecast just a bit. Throughout the next 7 to even 10 days, we are looking at very, very little rain chances, about 10% chance Thursday and Friday, and that's not looking very good. So what's this mean? We are hot and we are dry, and we're already seeing concerns with that for your Monday, and now we have about 7 days of this left to go. So we do need to use some common sense, some safety. We will keep you guys updated on all the evolving conditions, but Thursday and Friday, Karen, they can't come soon enough. You know what? Hopefully we can change this trend the other way, flip the script and bump up our rain chances, but right now it's not looking like much relief at all throughout the entirety of the 7-day. We'll be headed our way.
Well, we will certainly hold on to the little chance that we have there, Joe, and thank you for explaining all of that, the relative humidity and how all of that works, of course, and wildfire dangers like we have today. Right now, we want to head back to our newsroom. We want to head over to Joel Hillen at the desk, collecting all of the critical information for us. Joe, what have you recently learned?
Well, so we've got mandatory evacuations that are in place, and that's the big information that we want to get out to folks who are within those boundaries of the mandatory evacuation to keep your family safe. There's also some voluntary evacuation orders. Those are seen as yellow on this map. So this is what it looks like right now, all the way from Stone Mountain all the way down to Palisade Mountain and then to Alexander Mountain, and that's after which this fire is named. This is to the north side of the Big Thompson Canyon, and this whole area to the south, Pinewood Reservoir area, all of this neighborhood is being evacuated right now under a mandatory evacuation. If you're going to be evacuating to the west, they suggest that you go into Estus Park at the Estus Park Events Complex at 1125 Rooftop Way. If you are going to be evacuating to the east, they want you to go to the Wildfire Evacuation Center that's set up at Namaqua Elementary. That's at 209 North Namaqua. What about for animals? There's another icon up here for the animal shelter, and this has been set up, as you can see, all the way up here to the Blue FCU Arena. You got the First National Bank building right along that area. That is at 5290 Arena Circle in Loveland, Colorado. That's where you would send your big animals, I want to give you 2 other phone numbers too. So if you have a small animal, a dog or a cat, and you don't know where that needs to go, that can be evacuated to the NOCO Humane Society. That's at 970-226-3647. They'll be able to help you take care of that animal, keep it fed, and keep it safe until you can get back into your homes. The other number is, if you have any questions, this is so to not tie up 911. They want you to call 970-980-2500. That is going to be the Joint Information Center for the Alexander Mountain Fire that has been set up. This will give you additional information on those animal evacuations, as well as the centers are for each specific animal if you do have questions on where you should be taking them. But again, the focus has been on this evacuation map. If you are in the area that's in red, if you are from Storm Mountain all the way down to Pinewood Reservoir, just to the north of Carter Lake Marina, you are going to need to evacuate. US 34 is closed in both directions. That's from the mouth of Big Thompson Reservoir, or Big Thompson Canyon, excuse me, all the way to the east side of Estus Park. That is to make way for the folks that are in this neighborhood. You've got 3 separate neighborhoods right in that area, and their only access out of that. So you got Cedar Creek, you got Bobcat Gulch, you have Storm Mountain neighborhood. The only way out of that is Storm Mountain Drive onto Highway 34. All of that will remain open for you if you are evacuating. They are just withholding traffic that would normally be traveling from Loveland out to Estes Park along Highway 34. They will not be able to do that so that folks can get in and out of that area. But again, they have been notifying folks, Karen, who are in that area to get out to an evacuation center. And if you are under the red evacuation notice, you are, excuse me, we're going to send it over to Joe, but they are needing to get out of that area. And we have been watching the winds along there. That's been part of this story as well. They've been relatively calm. You see that column of smoke ascending directly skyward. That will be to the advantage of fire crews that are fighting this fire. We have a lot of crews from the U.S. Fire Service that are out there. We now have air support that's arrived on scene. We have 4 helicopters, 3 Type 1, 1 Type 3, 1 large air tanker that are all on scene. That, according to the U.S. Forest Service, that as of 2 hours ago, put this fire via air mapping at 247 acres for that fire. We understand that more resources are on the way. We talked with the BLM, the Upper Colorado River District on the western slope, as they fight the Kings Canyon fire, which is currently at 213 acres and 10% containment near Fruta. They're moving some resources over, 4 single-engine air tankers and 1 large air tanker moving to this fire. And we understand that 1 Type 1 aircraft will be coming from Wyoming to help fight this fire as well. Joe Rook, we were seeing that fire, the column of smoke, just going directly up into the air. But I know that these fires can create their own weather as well, which is something that you're going to be watching as well as part of this.
Yeah, no, exactly, Joel. And what we're watching is the winds actually calm for a bit longer than anticipated. That's good news. What I think we start to see are wind gusts up to about 20, 25 miles per hour from the west. And again, one thing that you could say is perhaps good about that, we're now sustaining a wind direction. If you've been with us, Dylan was telling us, hey, it was from the north, the south, the east, the west. Makes it harder to battle. Where's the front line of the fire? Well, now we're starting to get one. Let me go through a checklist here. Let's go step by step. What are we seeing with this fire? Well, the heat is here in full force. We can get rain. We can get a lot of rain, but 1 or 2 days with plenty of sunshine, dry conditions, temps 5-10 degrees above average. You dry everything at the surface, all the vegetation. The other thing are extremely low relative humidity. This is something we watch more so for fire growth and how's the weather impacting some of the growth conditions, and the wind is just that as well. The wind can create trouble with the fire line, but it can also help the fire spread. Let's go step by step and unpack each of the ingredients, if you will, that we're seeing in real time. So here's some good news. The latest update, we are continuing to see very calm winds. Loveland, Longmont, and Lyons are sensor now registering near 0 mile per hour with the gust. Even Estes Park only at 16. What our Futurecast is showing us, though, is that this doesn't last for long. I've put the approximate location of our fire here on the map as you go west on 34. So here's the latest numbers. This is a new update, and this is actually a bit better than the last time we took a look at this. One thing that hasn't changed, the two ways we'll look at this. Let's start with our wind direction. Westerly wind now is dominating throughout the next few real hours, all the way into the evening tonight before we get our next wind direction change. The other thing, we were seeing gust potential 20 to 25 miles per hour. Now, just going off this, I'd say 15 to 20 miles per hour is our new wind gust potential through about 1 a.m. tonight. So we've reduced that, and that would be exactly what we saw on the last map I showed you. Let me see if it'll go back here, where we saw our wind gusts dying down. It's taking longer for them to come to fruition. In turn, we've weakened our winds for the next few hours. That's good to help get ahead of the fire and prevent it from spreading more rapidly. The other ingredient, which here we go, trending in the right direction, Loveland now at 17% relative humidity. I just told you this is like a glass of water. How full is it? How much vapor is in the atmosphere? Well, another way to explain, Joe, what do these percentages mean? Think you're having a bonfire and all the embers get lofted up as it's crackling. Well, the higher this number, the more water vapor that can go around and suppress some of the embers. So when it's very low, such as 4% in Briggsdale, these embers maintain their heat as they're popping around so a fire can hop a highway. When you're starting to get up, now this is still pretty low, but towards the 20s, 30s, and 40s, that doesn't happen. So this continues to trend upwards. We'll take what we can get as far as fire growth potential. One other thing to unpack, I'm going to touch on the drought conditions right after this, because you see year-to-date rainfall just north of 10 inches. Where should we be? About 10 and 1/4 inches as far as our year-to-date rainfall on average. So you look at this, you'd think we're pretty good as far as drought conditions. Well, that's not the case because it was a wet start, a dry period. We picked up some rain chances. You want to get rain and you want to get it every once in a while, not in bursts, and that's how this year's been. So with that said, what we are seeing is moderate to severe drought conditions. Severe is north towards Fort Collins, south towards Boulder, moderate towards the Loveland area. What does this mean? Well, the vegetation around this area largely, not all of it, but largely will be dry, will be supportive of fire growth as well. That's not necessarily a weather way that you can look at it, but that's what the drought conditions would imply. Karen, what's the other concern? Very few rain chances throughout the extended forecast. It's only Monday. We have about 7 to 10 additional days to go with temperatures 5 to 10 degrees above average. Little to no rain chances just about across the board, so we need to use some common sense. We need to work together, maybe put grilling on the back burner for the next few days, because I think it only begins to intensify at least some of our drought conditions, some of our wind gusts as we get throughout the weekend towards looking way ahead next weekend.
Well, the response, of course, has been just fantastic today. Such a quick response. We know not to take any chances with any of these fires. Joe, thank you. Right now, we want to head back out to your reporter for Northern Colorado, Dylan Thomas, of course, covering all of this for you since it first broke out around 11:45 today. And Dylan, looking at the fire there behind you, have you noticed any changes?
As of right now, no, it's predominantly stayed pretty stagnant right here behind me. Though when I say stagnant, I mean in the terms of not seeing active flames blowing up over the ridgeline. Clearly, the fire's still burning, though, unfortunately, at this hour. Once again, for those who are just joining us, this started right around 11:30 and has only grown since then. It's my understanding, according to our colleagues in the newsroom, that this is now over 360 acres in size, showing how quickly this fire erupted and continued to grow, given the fact that this is only a few hours old at this time. We have seen several airdrops when it comes down to fire retardant and water, but I haven't seen any in probably the last 10 to 15 minutes. They might be refueling, maybe reassessing, or fingers crossed, maybe that means potentially they have it kind of boxed in, but we are still waiting to confirm that information at this time. I do want to note earlier in the newscast, I was giving you guys updates on the water that I heard some employees were telling me that there was a potential that they might have to divert water. Now the city of Loveland reaching out to me, telling me that that is not the case, that as of right now, they do not have any plans or intent to shut off their water intake. However, they did tell me they do have a water facility right up in the canyon, right up in that area of the fire. So while they're saying right now they are not shutting off their water intake or having to divert, they said that is for right now. So we should put that point of clarity out there. But once again, over 360 acres in size. We are just west of Loveland. This is US 34 over this shoulder that heads up into Estus Park. And it's my understanding that it is closed from pretty much the other side of this ridge line right here behind me, which is by the dam store, all the way up past Drake, heading toward Estus Park. We'll send it back to you, Karen.
Yeah, Dylan, to talk a little bit more about those evacuations, which roads are closed in that area. We want to head right now to Joe Hillen, who is manning everything at the desk right now. And Joe, you have been receiving so much information, doing a great job of passing that on to our viewers today. And we do want to talk, of course, about the evacuation area.
Yeah, so that's the big, the important information, right, that we are getting and gathering that is useful to folks who are in that area to keep your family safe. And I want to get right to that map. So this is from NOCO Alert. This is the evacuation area. It has grown steadily over the last 2.5 hours or 3 hours that we have been on the air. Storm Mountain is to the northern portion of this, all the way down, and I'll bring this up here so you can see Carter Lake is to the south. Carter Lake, just to the north of that, is under a voluntary evacuation. That's what these yellow areas mean. And then this is another area just to the south of Masonville, right along Devil's Backbone open space there, that is under voluntary evacuation. And then we have this larger evacuation area. Now, you'll notice Highway 34 is closed as you get from the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon right there at the dam store, all the way until you get to Estes Park. Why have they done this? They've done this so that only emergency crews and folks needing to evacuate can access those roads. That is the priority right now, to get folks and their animals out to safety. If you have big animals, where do you take those? Well, here on the map, they show you. Do you see it right there? This is 5290 Arena Circle in Loveland. That's where you can take your bigger animals. If you have smaller animals, well, what's the question? Let me show you. Larimer County Sheriff has been tweeting and keeping folks up to date. This is their news feed that they have been providing for us. They say those small animals, dogs, cats, can be evacuated to the NOCO Humane area. And if you do have questions about that, there's the phone number, 970-226-3647. If you have any questions about any of the information that you need, don't call 911. Call this number for the Joint Information Center, and let me make this a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. 970-980-2500. That is the number that you can call for additional information on the Alexander Mountain Fire. Part of the story that we tell is helped by viewers, and I just want to bring in this picture here that we are getting. This is from Glen Haven Fire that are out there staged at the scene, and you can see the flames right along the ridge there, and the huge column of smoke that is extending up into the air. It is that smoke that your reporter in the northern Colorado, Dylan Thomas, was first to see from his window and report to us just before the noon hour, before we went on to the air, and we've been in continuous coverage ever since that moment. That column of smoke being seen from Fort Collins as well, and across the Front Range. And so, Karen, those evacuation centers are important to the east and to the west in Estes Park, and to the east in Loveland. And then if you have those animals, you can get those to centers as well. But if you are in that red area, and let me take this away and bring that back up so you can see it again, if you are in this red area, you need to evacuate immediately.
All right, Joel, thank you so much, of course, for all that you're doing and all that information you're passing along to us. It's just critical information, and we appreciate you walking us through all of that and all of that for our viewers right now. We want to get back to Joe Rook in the Weather Center. Meteorologist, our first alert weather meteorologist, Joe Rook, who, of course, is also walking us through the weather conditions. And, Joe, what the weather is like right now at this moment. And there are a couple of good things working in our favor, so we want to highlight that.
Yeah, exactly. I want to break it all down. I'm trying to resize this image behind me. Couldn't get it in time. But there's a pyrocumulus cloud that did develop. What's this mean? Well, there's a lot of uncertainty. It means it's a mature wildfire, but this can create a bit more uncertainty, as I was saying. What you get with that is some sudden downflows with the winds that can really create intense bursts on and off out of just about nowhere. So, that is something that's important to note. We will watch it. Sorry, I couldn't get that sized in time. The other key factor that we do see, looking at our wind gusts, this is still a good sign because they've significantly backed off. We saw gusts up to about 25 miles per hour, even approaching the upper 20s out towards Estes Park. everything's taken a step back, at least weather-wise, for now. This can't necessarily speak to the fire conditions, but I can tell you growth-wise, this would be a good sign. And we saw that from some of the live shots and photos. The smoke is now rising straight up. What's that mean? Winds at the surface, at least the gust, they're backing off for now. And in turn, when you go towards our futurecast winds, they've taken a downtrend as well. Earlier, it was looking like gusts up to 20, 25, even 30 miles per hour. Now we're seeing gust potential more so 15 to 20 miles per hour through 1 a.m. This means firefighters can get ahead of the fire line. And what do I mean by fire line? We also have been telling you wind direction has been an issue. Dylan was out there telling us firsthand, hey, the wind's the north, south, east, west. When you don't have a direction, it's hard because the fire can have a mind of its own. Now we're stuck with the more westerly flow, meaning that the smoke blows the same direction. The firefighters know what direction they need to fight to get in front of the fire. So it's actually some good news as far as the winds are concerned. The other factor we want to look at, this is relative humidity, moisture, water vapor within the air. This is another factor combined with the winds that helps a fire explode. When relative humidity is low, an ember lofted in the atmosphere, it can continue to travel, keep its heat, and maintain some of the heating, which then is how fires jump highways, if you've ever heard that. When the relative humidity is higher, moisture will suffocate that ember, and as that occurs, what you start to get is a more contained fire, or a fire that's easier to contain. And what we are seeing, 17% relative humidity in Loveland. It's not great, let's be honest, but it's upward trend. It's trending upwards. It started out more so near 12%. And it's very marginal. Once you're near 12%, the ember, we can almost say with more confidence, will be able to spread. So high fire danger does exist. Gusty flames, just try and be smart with open burning. Maybe put some grilling off because we have 7 to 10 days of dry weather to go. Caution with any flame starting activities. One more time, let's revisit, because some people up in Loveland are saying, hey, we've picked up the rain this year. What is going on? It was such a quick start to the rain season, and it's been dry of late. The dog days of summer, what's this mean? Moderate drought condition, Karen. We know this translates then to very dry timber, grass, and vegetation for this fire to work with, which likely is why we saw a really quick initiation of this, and it just got its act together.
Yeah, it just catches on and just takes off crazy. Yep. So appreciative of all the air support that we're getting right now. Joe, thank you for keeping us on track with the weather conditions and how things stand as we move throughout this evening. We, of course, will be right back with much more on this fire for you burning up in Larimer County. We do continue our coverage right now on breaking news. There is a wildfire. We've been talking about it all afternoon, burning in northern Colorado, and it is growing quickly. It is now at about 365 acres. Evacuations are underway. Thank you so much for being with us and counting on us here. I'm Karen Lee. Here's a look now at where this fire is happening. In the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon between Loveland and Estus Park. Now there is an evacuation center set up in Estus Park. We're going to get to all of those in just a second. There are also mandatory evacuations in place. Those are in red on this map. They run all along Highway 34, extend further west as this fire moves in that direction. Voluntary evacuations are also in place. Now you'll see those. They run along the east, along the edge of the Loveland city limits. You can see those evacuation orders. Those are in yellow right there. So anyone in the red areas should evacuate. Move out as quickly as you can right now. If you are in that yellow area, you should be ready to leave. Start getting your affairs and your things there at your home and your animals and things you want to take care of. Take care of that now. All right, we also want to take a look at the road closures that are also in place. Highway 34 shut down for firefighter operations. We have several crews on the way to the scene right now, of course, to provide you live coverage. We also know the Highway 34, they were shut down also, of course, for the emergency crews to get in and out of there. They also want to allow the people that live in those neighborhoods of the areas in red that we were just showing you. There's the 3 main neighborhoods in that area. Those people need to be able to get out. So they need to make sure that there is no other traffic jams on that section of road. So of course everyone can get out of that area safely. Super, super important. Do not go out to that area to try to get in. They will not let you in. Only people that live in that area can get in and out. Our copter over the scene for you just a few minutes ago, and you can see the flames still peaking there from this fire. It is still hot, moving quickly. They're working super hard to get this one contained, but we all know what the conditions are like. We live in Colorado. We understand what's at stake right now. This massive plume of smoke can be seen for miles. Loveland Fire Rescue, Larimer County Sheriff, several more agencies are responding to this wildfire all west of Loveland. Right now we want to get out to your reporter covering all things in northern Colorado for you, Dylan Thomas. You have one of the first people to report this fire, and of course you've been working since you first spotted it around noon today.
Yeah, I saw it out my window, and that's when I first called it in, and we quickly learned this was a rapidly growing fire, which is still burning right behind me at this hour. I will say that since I first saw this fire burning, this right here has actually been the least amount of smoke I've seen rising from the plume right there. I should say not as thick of smoke. There's obviously a wider range than when I first looked at it, but it's not billowing as much as it was before, which hopefully is a good sign. The winds have calmed down ever so slightly, especially if you've been with us since right around the noon, 12:15 hour, when we watched the winds blowing east and then shifting west and then shifting south. I should also note that it's probably been well over 30 to 40 minutes since we saw any type of airdrop or air presence at all. All of these, once again, we don't have for this confirmed, but hopefully signs that this fire is somewhat getting a little bit more containment. Last I heard, it's well over 360 acres in size, meaning it's been burning just over about, on average, 100 acres every hour. Definitely moving quickly. I also just now heard and saw, that's when you guys cut to me and I was looking off camera, a first emergency vehicle running lights and sirens, running code westbound. That's the first one we've seen in well over an hour. So the response has definitely started to slow down. Fingers crossed that's a good sign for everybody, but once again, still clearly a threat to those who live in the area due to the fact that there are still flames burning here on Alexander Mountain. For those who do not know where we are and you're just now joining us, this is west of Loveland. I am physically in Loveland right now on the edge of it, and right behind me is the fire that has been burning since just about 11:30 in the morning. It's at the mouth of the canyon, Alexander Mountain. For those who do not know those mountains right here behind me, it's right there near the dam store, which is pretty much at the very as close to the mouth of the canyon as you can get. And the canyon we're speaking about is the Big Thompson Canyon as well. And once again, if you stepped away for a little while and you didn't see my last report, I do want to update that the city of Loveland says they are aware of the fact that one of their water stations is right here near this fire, but they say at this time they are not diverting any water or shutting those plants down, but that is for now. Obviously, that's dependent on the trajectory of this fire. Karen?
All right, of course, your reporter Dylan Thomas bringing us all the latest information out there. We appreciate it. Right now, we want to take a look at some of the images that are coming into our newsroom, getting some really some great photos of people that are sharing what they're seeing with us right now. And by great, I don't mean, obviously, we have a wildfire burning, but really clear, crisp pictures of this wildfire and as it has been expanding and now starting to go down a little bit, as you just heard Dylan Thomas reporting there. This picture comes into us from Glen Haven area. Really a good look at how large this fire was and how quickly it blew up around noon today. If we can click on to the next picture, I don't know if this is from Alex Lainert, our meteorologist in the mornings, capturing this picture. And if you can put into context what Dylan was just sharing with us a few minutes ago, you can see all the black, heavy plumes of smoke from earlier. Okay, that has dissipated a little bit. We will, of course, talk to the desk here in a little bit, and Joel Hillen will update us, of course, with all the air support that has been coming in and really trying to grasp and knock down this fire a little bit. But that was one of our other pictures. And let's move on to this picture coming in. This is from Alyssa Oliver. I'm not sure where Alyssa is from, but she captured this photo for you. And we just, we hate to see this in our state. We've had so much trauma and destruction and devastation from wildfires. Anytime a fire pops up, of course, everyone across our state is on high alert. We appreciate the photos. We appreciate the communication. Keep it coming as we get a handle on this Alexander Mountain fire right now. Let's get to Joel Hillen on the desk, who's been bringing us some really vital information all afternoon. And Joel, what is the latest that you've received lately?
So we've just learned in the last 15 minutes or so that that number has increased to 365 acres. They fly a plane, the U.S. Forest Service does, and they do an infrared perimeter of the fire. So that's the exact perimeter of the fire, and they're able to get a really good number on that fire. And again, that number has grown to 365 acres total. There is now a large evacuation order, a mandatory evacuation order that is in place. And I want to show you that map again and what this means for folks who are in that area. Or this is a video of some of the road closures, rather, as you get in that area. Larimer County Road 43, you're not going to be able to get in and out through there. Only if you are a resident evacuating from that area can you access some of these roads. We talked about Cedar Creek, Bobcat Gulch, Storm Mountain neighborhoods, all in the heart of that evacuation area. They have one way out, and that is Storm Mountain Drive onto Highway 34. They need to be able to access that, so they're asking everybody else to please not as you get past the area. This is Glen Haven out to the east, or excuse me, to the west of that, out to Estus Park. And I was showing you the evacuation map because that extends from Storm Mountain all the way to the north-south to Pinewood Reservoir. And then as you get along that Devil's Backbone open space, that is under a voluntary evacuation order just to the north of, what is that, Carter Lake there, Reservoir. That is under a voluntary evacuation order there, as you can see on my computer here, what I'm looking at. To the east, you have the evacuation center that is set up by the Red Cross. That is Namaqua Elementary School. That's where folks are able to go to. We talked with John Seward with the Red Cross. He said this shelter is open. They are ready to provide food and shelter for folks who are evacuated in that area. They have all the resources and volunteers that they need there. If you are to the west, that is going to be out at Estes Park Events Complex. They have food and shelter for folks out that direction. So wherever you need to go, if you're in this evacuation area, they are set up and ready for you to get to those areas. You just need to make sure that you clear out, and so the crews can get to work on that fire.
All right, Joel, thank you so much. Taking a live look now still at that map of that evacuation center. And Joel, I know a few minutes ago we were talking about all the air support that has been coming in, of course, and working on this fire. A lot traveling and a lot coming in. They've had several dumps, air support, water tankers that have been able to dump on that fire and control that area, which is so super important. Our Gabriella Vidal just arrived to a shelter in Estes Park. And Gabby, have you been able to talk with anybody that's starting to arrive?
Yeah, Karen, I actually did speak to some people briefly that were actually evacuating from the area in Drake, and they're here right now. There's not a lot of people here at this location yet, and where I'm actually located is the Estus Park Events Complex. It's one of those 2 locations that Joel mentioned that is an evacuation point for people that are having to do these voluntary and mandatory evacuations. And you can see right behind me, this is the smoke plume from that very same Alexander Mountain fire, and you can see how big it is even from this side of town where it's probably not as prominent coming in this direction, but still, you can see how big of an impact it's already making in this area. And right now, it's still pretty quiet in this parking lot. We're probably going to see more people trickle in as the day goes on. But this is, again, the Estus Park Events Complex, and there is Red Cross here. There is food and resources here for people to seek shelter. The Namaqua Elementary School is also the other location. That one's located on 209 North Namaqua Avenue in Loveland. So for whoever is trying to evacuate in either direction, there will be space for you to come here. And as for bigger animals, I do have information on, like, for livestock or anyone who has bigger animals that they need to seek shelter. There's the Island Grove Regional Park, that's in Greeley, the NoCo Humane Center, and the Ranch, which is in Arena Circle in Loveland. So there's a lot of different avenues for people if they're having to make these evacuations. But again, we're going to continue to monitor this area as we see more people trickle in, and we'll hope to speak to some of the people who've had to do some of these mandatory evacuations. Karen.
All right, Gabriella, thank you so much.
And of course, stay with CBS Colorado all afternoon, all evening, as we will continue to keep you posted on the very latest with the Alexander Mountain fire. We'll be right back. Tankers were up there as well, Michaelia, and they were the ones that gave us the acreage size on this, 365 acres about right now. Super, super important that they get a handle on this because you never know when the conditions are going to change.
Absolutely. And we are looking at another picture here. This looks like it's from Mountain View Fire Rescue. Again, that huge plume of smoke there in the air, and you know, Karen, it's just been, I mean, look at that. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. What, you know, we know that obviously, like you said, this is Colorado and these things are to be expected, but, you know, it just was the right condition. You know, Joe was talking earlier about how it's been so dry and we really have needed moisture. And thankfully these crews have gotten out there to, you know, to get this fire under control, hopefully soon, you know.
Yeah, let's move on to the next picture. This image comes in from Mallory Daigle. And Mallory, really appreciate you sending in these photos. And this gives us a different look of the fire and its size and how it's changing. We know these wildfires change quickly. Right now, it seems like they've been able to get a handle on this. They haven't shared any containment yet. We will get those numbers obviously later on in the evening. But you can tell from how the fire has been changing and the color of the smoke that they are fighting this one on all fronts. Crews from all over the metro area across the state are coming in. We know a huge air tanker came in from Colorado Springs too to come in and drop on this fire. We know we have a history with wildfires in Colorado. We do not take any chances with making sure that we get a handle on these as quickly as possible.
And we're going to look at some, we have another picture here from, this is from, let's see, this is from the U.S. Forest Service here. Again, that scary scene as the smoke is just in the air. This is the Alexander Mountain Fire. We know that this has been burning all day long. We've had crews out there with CBS News Colorado. We've had your reporter, Dylan Thomas. We have, you know, we've had photojournalist Dale Atchison. We have, you know, our Gabriela Vidal. They're all covering this on all angles for you, making sure that you stay safe because this is serious stuff. This is serious.
We do have some video that we want to share with you. I believe we have it of our fire trucks heading west right now. Loveland Fire Rescue, Larimer County Sheriff, several more agencies, as we were talking about, responding to this wildfire just west of Loveland and between Loveland and Estus Park there. Highway 34, of course, the big area that has been closed down there. Super, super important that they close down Highway 34 because the main evacuation area, Michaelia, is just north of Highway 34. They want to get those neighborhoods. They want to make sure that they have that road open and clear so that people can get out of there. We know weather, a big part of the situation. First Alert meteorologist Joe Rook and the Weather Center breaking all of this down for us. And of course, we've been talking so much about the hot conditions.
Yeah.
We know there is drought in this area because it can be tough, Joe.
It's all a melting pot coming together in a bad way, in a very bad way. Now, real quick, what's changed since I've last been with you? One air quality alert note that I want to unpack. Southern Larimer County, that's where the air quality alert has been issued through 9 a.m. tomorrow. This was just issued for wildfire smokes. That's hyper-local associated with that. The rest of this, it's an ozone alert day. By 9 a.m. or by 4 o'clock tonight, actually, we'll be able to really diagnose this map. But if you are sensitive, keep this in mind. This is another impact you can simply overlook. Pyrocumulus cloud, I've managed to reshape this here, has developed. This can basically just mean you have a matured fire burning here. It gives you a bit of unpredictability. This has been able to produce rain. In other fire examples, it can produce sporadic wind gust. So this is just another aspect, another element of the fire we'll watch closely. Rob McClure, our photog, actually shared that with me just a few moments ago. Let's go through our checklist again. Let's check in on all the latest conditions of the fire and hope that the winds are still calm. 90s to triple digits out across the eastern plains. What's this do? Well, even if we picked up rain, which we haven't recently, we all know closer to the summit elevation here, it only takes 1 or 2 dry days in a row to really get surface level vegetation bone dry. Low relative humidity and winds, these work together to help fire growth as it spreads. Some embers travel. Let's get you now detailed through the checklist. Temperature-wise, as anticipated, I think there's a solid chance we hit 100 over in Loveland, and that is heat that is about 10 degrees up above average, abnormally warm conditions. You see forecasted about 98. The fire, some of the surface conditions, and lack of winds at this point, there's a good chance we will be able to accelerate beyond, and in fact, we already have. Our wind map, and this is a great sign. It's probably been 20 minutes since I was last with you. Winds are still really at calm conditions for Loveland and Longmont. Only 3 miles per hour towards the Lyons area. Estes Park, we're hovering up and down between about 15 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. But this is certainly a sign you want to see. West on 34, we're not seeing much in the form of stronger wind gusts as we were originally anticipating by this time. It doesn't mean they won't arrive, and I am fairly confident at some point this evening, whether that's 4:30 or 5 o'clock, we will pick up winds to about 20 miles per hour. You see Estus Park included in that. Overnight tonight, it's just on and off wind gusts, which is why now is a great time to get a real good handle on the fire. A bit more unpredictable as we get overnight and then into the day. Tomorrow, it's just another day where it's dry and gusty at times. So it's good to see, at least, or hear some of the growth that we've limited, let's say, up to this point with the fire. This is another map, and this is actually a big update that we've been watching. Relative humidity. About 20 minutes ago, I was looking at this. Everything was trending upwards. We were at 17%. At this point, we've now dropped down to 11%. What is relative humidity? Here's the explanation. Water vapor in the air. Think you have a glass of water. Whatever's not filled is air. So our glass is filled 11% in Loveland. The remainder of that is bone dry air. Think you're having a bonfire, embers crackling up off the fire, lofted into the atmosphere. When it's dry air, which we are now below our 12% threshold, those embers maintain their heat as they travel and get blown in the wind. So it's good, very good that we don't have the winds right now. When you have higher relative humidities, and I'm talking like 30, 40%, the ember gets suffocated by the water. So we are dry right now. This is actually a pretty big change that we need to watch. So believe it or not, we don't even have red flag warnings. They're confined towards the northwest, and that's simply because we don't meet the 3 hours of wind gusts in excess of 25 miles per hour. I'm showing you this because just because no red flags alerts are issued doesn't mean we can't have elevated fire potential, and that's what we spent all weekend attempting to kind of explain. Now, as far as the next few days, I am beginning to grow a bit concerned because we're looking at this heat wave for about 12 additional days at least. And I don't see much in the form of really any rain chances. We're all the way out to Sunday here. Thursday and Friday, about a 10% chance, but that's not necessarily a good 10% chance. Let me show you why. First alert weather days today and tomorrow, but thunderstorms will be anticipated. A whole lot of dry air at the surface means that you can still get a rumble of thunder and a bolt of lightning when it's not raining. Dry lightning that produces, and dry lightning, you can guess, puts all this energy and heat into one area, and that can start fires on its own. So it's not even great that we see these 10% chances. In fact, you could almost argue you'd rather stay dry across the board than a dry thunderstorm move through. But the other key takeaway I want to show you guys, we are above 90 degrees through Sunday, and if I were to put this out even further, it will linger as well with no rain chances across the board. So we just got to work together, use some common sense, try and avoid anything that could potentially spark or potential fire starting activities, because to be quite honest, I don't see much relief at all in sight.
And Joe, speaking of lingering too, a little bit earlier we were talking about the air quality, how it's been so poor recently. Yeah. This is not going to contribute to that as well.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
What I think is going to happen is as we start to see some of the winds pick up, especially by tomorrow, where will the wildfire smoke set up? I guess some good news, maybe the metro area will likely avoid it, but it looks like northern I-25, guys. The combination of this fire and, unfortunately, dipping back into the Canadian wildfires, I do think there will be isolated pockets after noon tomorrow where we will have this wildfire smoke returning, and that does now include the Canada smoke and this Loveland fire.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for breaking that down. We'll be right back.
2.
Thank you so much for being with us as we continue our live breaking coverage right now of this wildfire, the Alexander Mountain Fire that's burning up in Larimer County. A live picture coming to you right now of this fire. Very active, zero containment that we know of right now. Sits at about 365 acres at this moment. This picture coming to you from your reporter, Dylan Thomas, who's been out there all day bringing you the live updates from this area. Just continues to sit at about 365 acres. We do see some dark coloration now filling out in this fire. It has changed a little bit in the last 30 minutes as we've been taking these live pictures for you. We are going to keep you covered right here at CBS Colorado all evening long. We will stay with this fire because we know the conditions are ripe for a fire. It is dry out there, low humidity. So it's just a very difficult wildfire situation as we speak.
And we know crews are rushing out there to, get that fire taken care of. But yeah, we are certainly hoping and praying for the best for folks out there, and our hearts are with them.
Evacuations are underway. Our Andrew Hobner, your reporter. Andrew, tracking the very latest information there at our desk. Andrew, so much information to come in. But we know most importantly, of course, evacuations and that area that people need to stay away from so the rescue crews can get in there and these homeowners can get out.
Information as well on social media. You might have seen a post saying that this fire is around 800 acres. It is actually around 365 at this given moment, and there are a lot of fire crews from a variety of fire districts that are going to be heading out. As for the evacuation, we can pull some up on the screen to show you right here. This is a map that's maintained by the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Right over the actual fire symbol, that's kind of the spiritual center of the fire, if you will, the two house symbols, this one on the left over by Estus Park, this one on the right over by Loveland, are evacuation centers for individuals. This one on the right side by Loveland over on Namaquah Avenue, that's right by the elementary school. The one on the left over, as you see, in Estus Park. Now this one on the far right that's just off I-25, you can see, is for large animals. So that's mainly for horses, cattle, those big ranch animals that you typically see out in that vicinity. And a lot of the road closures that we're seeing as we change go down just off of Highway 34. So right over by the dam store and a little bit further up, actually, over by a couple of the RV campgrounds is where you kind of see this differentiation between a mandatory evacuation and a voluntary evacuation. So what do those things mean? Well, as you can see on the left, we've got the yellow. This is a voluntary evacuation zone. So that's, you voluntarily leave if you're concerned for your safety. If you need some additional time to exit the area, that may mean you have kids, you have large animals, you have family members, you have things that you need to get out, or you have health conditions that could be aggravated by the incident. So everything that you see just a little bit further out here on the front end by Loveland, this yellow is all voluntary evacuation. Now everything up here in the hills on Highway 34, that is going to be mandatory evacuation. That is, you have to leave. Do not delay. Grab the things that you need for your family. And as we show you a little bit further down, this is from NOCO Alert that tells you, get your essential items, clothing, medication, any other items that you might need to be away for an extended period of time, and make sure you have everything for every member of your household, your adults, children, and of course your pets as well. Now, the important thing here for those up in Larimer County is to text LCEVAC, that's LCEVAC, to 888-777. That will send you text message updates of the evacuation, so you know whether or not you are in a voluntary evacuation zone or a mandatory evacuation zone. The last thing I want to show you is how we actually got into this, and this is some pretty cool information that we have. This comes from the Colorado Forest Service. This is called the Colorado Forest Atlas. It's actually a really neat little tool that they use that has geospatial imaging. That is the type of stuff that when they fly up the infrared drones and planes to actually map these fires, they're using something similar here across the state. So let's zoom all the way into the Loveland area where you actually see where this fire is occurring. This is not a fire map. This is a burn probability map. And you can see just how red this area is in Big Thompson Canyon, right where some of this fire is occurring right now. That burn probability is extremely high in certain spots. And then the final thing that I'm going to show you is the potential fire intensity map. So as you can see down in the Loveland area here, a potential fire intensity would not be very big, but as you get a little bit further up into that Big Thompson Canyon area, you can see that map turn from lowest intensity to low to moderate to high, and that is exactly what we are starting to see today. So as we mentioned for everybody here, text LC EVAC to 888-777 to get those text message evacuations. And one last time before we send it back to you guys, we will also show you that map on Highway 34 here, exactly where your evacuation centers are on Namaquah in Loveland, and then of course over in Estus Park, and then you have the animal shelter that is on Arena Circle in Loveland. We got so much more, a lot more information that is coming in, guys, and we'll continue to monitor it for you here at the desk.
Andrew, fantastic job walking us through all of that. We really appreciate it. It helps so much to just zero in on how people can get to those points and how they can access all that information. Super, super, super important. Andrew, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
Four, three, two.
Thank you so much for counting on CBS News Colorado as we walk you through the breaking news right now of this wildfire. It is burning in northern Colorado, and it does continue to grow.
We know evacuations are underway, but we do have you covered here at CBS News Colorado. We have a lot of reporters out there and teams helping you stay safe. Your reporter Tori Mason joins us live from the Ranch Event Center in Larimer County. And Tori, what's happening out where you are?
Well, guys, on the drive up here, we were listening to dispatchers list off addresses of homes with animals that need help. And right now, we're all just hoping that they were able to reach them. Again, we're at the ranch where they're rescuing large animals, anything larger than a sheep, really. This is Rebecca. She's a volunteer. She's done this many times before. Rebecca, you said that you actually saw some of these owners when you got these horses behind you. What were their reactions?
Yeah, I think everybody's really stressed, of course, and everybody handles stress differently. So it's kind of my job to come in and try to help people the best that I can. I've evacuated my own horses a bunch of times. I've evacuated other horses. So, everyone's a little frantic, but it's how it goes. Trying to take care of them.
And you said the fire can actually be a stressor for horses too, right? Could you explain that?
Yeah, just like any of us, they have a nervous system with a fight or flight response. So as soon as they start smelling the smoke and seeing their people get nervous, they can get anxious. So depending on the horse, they can be more agitated or not. But yeah, where we were at just now, the fire was just up the hill. It wasn't super smoky, so it wasn't very stressful. But of course, we know what's happening.
Well, we appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And so right now the ranch is telling me that they have room for about 24 horses. They are trying to build some more stables. At the moment, we're sort of off to the right of the check-in center. They want us over here to respect the owner's privacy. There could be some horses and other animals coming in that are a bit injured, and we're not sure how the owners would react to that. We just spoke to a woman who brought in at least a dozen animals, everything from sheep to horses. She actually had to leave her chickens at home. We're hoping for the best for them too. But for now, we're just going to keep monitoring these efforts and hope more volunteers come, guys.
Yeah, Tori, we so appreciate you being out there. And we're looking right now over your shoulder at the horses there in the trailer. They're being fed. They're being well taken care of. And just so important. We love what I believe you said her name was Rebecca, who is helping with part of the rescue there. And we just love what she shared so much about, she's been through this before. So many of these horse owners and wildlife owners have been through this before. They know how to step up and help each other. Doesn't take away from the stress, but it certainly helps to know where to go and that somebody is right there to help you with your animals.
Absolutely. And the first woman I spoke to, she was under a voluntary evacuation, and she just decided, nope, we got to go. She's done this before. She's not taking any chances. Again, we're still hoping for those chickens, but she had a lot of young girls with her. You can't stay.
Yeah, we certainly are hoping the best for those chickens too. We know how much we love our animals and how important it is to have those. All right, Tori, thank you. We'll check out again with First Alert meteorologist Joe Rook in the First Alert Weather Center. And Joe, we know those hot, dry conditions, they are making this battle really difficult for crews out there.
Yeah, they're acting like a fuel, essentially, just all the bad ingredients together in a melting pot. If you're just joining us, something that's relatively new, our air quality alert. Southern Larimer County has been issued for wildfire smoke, so the southern portion of the county. The remainder of this is ozone concerns. We'll have to see what happens because we are tracking a return of Canadian wildfire smoke as well as this smoke working together. Now, for the nitty-gritty of the fire, let's go through our checklist again. Let's look at the latest conditions as we have been monitoring temperatures. We know that they're there, 90s, triple digits out across the plains. What's this do? Let's say we pick up all this rain earlier in the week. We get 3 days dry with temperatures 10 degrees above average. It doesn't take long. 3 days is plenty to dry out all the vegetation. It's exactly what we are seeing. Relative humidity, that is very low. The winds, they're marginal. I'll explain that. But these two ingredients you want to monitor as far as our fire growth potential. Any fire can grow, but sometimes the weather will actually amplify just how quickly it can grow. And still great news looking at our wind map. Non-existent wind gusts, and we're seeing that in some of our live shots. Our smoke plume is more so straight up versus blowing to the east with our westerly flow pushing through. There we go, another little update there. Estus Park only at about 18 miles per hour. So this is certainly good news. There's been no real changes with our wind potential. We do have another update. This one just came in across the board. This is Loveland, our maximum wind gusts per hour. Let's look through about 2 a.m. because that's when our pattern change, our little boundary will move through. One perhaps good sign, just about westerly wind, or at least a westerly component across the board. That means your wind direction stays steady. Earlier in the day, Dylan was showing us visibly all the different wind directions, north, south, east, west. Just creates some trouble trying to stay on top of the fire in the fire line. This is good news. The other good news, red flag warning criteria, you want to stay below 25 miles per hour. We do just that. So the wind forecast continues to lighten in real time. Something that I can tell you is in places our temperatures 99 in Loveland, just to the south. Longmont is at 100. There's a good chance we hit 100 in the Loveland area for today. Our forecast high was right near the 98-degree mark. Now, some outside factors are impacting that, and with all the heat and all the dry conditions, that's a box we can check. Relative humidity, it's not something we'll talk about on a typical day, but when there's high fire danger, this does a lot. This can mean a lot. And what has changed at Loveland, for example, we were all the way up to 17%, which would put us still low, but in a more favorable position. When you're below 12%, what's this mean? Let's say you're having a bonfire. This is how I'd like to explain it. Embers popping off into the atmosphere. They're lofted with some semi-gusty conditions. Well, this means there's little to no water vapor. So we're looking at a measurement of water in the atmosphere. And then, as you can imply from that, when there's little to no water vapor, these embers travel and maintain their heat. If this were a higher number, let's say 20, 30, 40%, the ember gets squashed, it gets suffocated by the water vapor and put out. So this is one factor for fire growth, but we don't have the wind gust right now. So it's not all that concerning, but it's certainly a forecast that we need to continue to monitor. It's very, very marginal. One more key takeaway, because I think this is important as we get throughout the next few days. Red flag warning is only in the northwestern corner. That doesn't mean there still isn't critical conditions across much of 25. We're dry and hot through the next few days. It's going to be a busy week, guys. Let's all work together, use some common sense, avoid sparks as we are hot and dry for the next 7 to 10 days.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for walking us through just what the weather conditions are at this moment and kind of why we're sitting where we are right now. Thank you.
Always.
We'll be right back.
And from here, you can see just how dry it is out there. We talk about how dry it is. We talk about the drought that we're in. We understand it. We live here in Colorado. We've been through this before, but when you get up like this, you can really see how dry it is. Not very much green out there, so a lot of fuel, of course, for this fire. We do have another look, too, at where we want to show you of where this is happening right now in the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon between Loveland and Estus Park.
And we know that there are evacuation centers set in Loveland as well as Estes Park. People getting to safety. Plenty of resources out there, but yeah, as you know, as people evacuate there.
Yeah, the main stretch there, Highway 34, is closed to any traffic along that section. The reason for that is because they need those neighborhoods that are in the evacuation zones to be able to get onto Highway 34 and to be able to get out safely. We want to talk about the evacuation centers that you see right there, one in Loveland, one in Estus Park. Your reporter, Gabriela Vidal, just arrived to the shelter there, one of the evac centers there in Estes Park. And Gabby, we know these shelters so important to those who need them at these critical, stressful moments. Have you been able to talk with anybody that's starting to arrive?
Yeah, Karen and Michaela, I have been able to talk to a few people. A lot of people actually coming out of the area around Drake and have evacuated to this specific evacuation center. Like you said, there are two, the other one being at the Namaquah Elementary School back in the Loveland part. So those two shelters are open for people who are being told to evacuate right now. And I've spoken to a lot of people. A lot of them are still kind of shaken up about having to evacuate at all and not willing to talk on camera. But they do tell me that they are grateful to have this area to go to during a situation like this. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the actual smoke plume from the Alexander Mountain fire that you can see all the way here from Estes Park. Again, it's still growing, and of course we're going to see more people making their way down to this evacuation center as well as the one in Loveland. We've seen maybe like 10-15 cars make their way over here in the last 30 minutes or so, and I can only imagine more will be headed on 34 in this direction, and we'll hopefully speak to a lot more of them. And now right now there is services like the Red Cross inside the event center, so for anyone who comes here, there is food, there is water, there is resources here in case you need it. So that's always a good thing for people who are having to kind of get out of their home during a situation like this. A lot of families, people that are coming in right now. But again, we're expecting to see this parking lot fill up a lot more throughout the day. And once again, we're having this location and the Namaquah Elementary School. So for whichever direction you're having to go through, you're able to find those safe shelters. So we hope to speak to more people as they continue to trickle in. But right now, I'll take it back to you, Michaela and Karen, back in the studio.
All right, Gabby, thank you so much for being out there for us and bringing those stories to us as well.
Let's get over to First Alert meteorologist Joe. We're going to go to the desk with Joel Hill. And Joel, you've been walking us through all of this afternoon with all the information. We were talking about those evacuation orders and where those evacuation areas are.
Yeah, so you got all the way to the north. You got Storm Mountain to the north, and then Carter Lake that's down to the south. Along that whole stretch, they're asking folks to evacuate. And of course, with those evacuation centers are set up, we have Gabrielle Vidal off to the one in Estes Park. We've got Tori Mason heading to the one off at the elementary school that we have in Loveland that's going on there. We are just learning from Poudre Fire that they're working to clear the water of Horsetooth Reservoir right now to support the fire response. And they're also asking folks to avoid Horsetooth Reservoir while they continue to battle this fire. We sent our photojournalist Tim Guidry out to the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. He's got a live picture for us now. We understand that there's quite a bit of aircraft that's being supported in and around that airport. That's what they're using to come in and out of. We talked with Heather Marsh from BLM from the Upper Colorado River District earlier. They are diverting resources from the Kings Canyon fire. That's a fire that's at 213 acres burning near Fruita, and this is one of the aircraft that we have there. Again, these live pictures coming in from photojournalist Tim Guidry that's out at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. So what do we got? We've got 28 crews that are on scene, 12 agencies, more on the way, 7 aircraft on the scene, more on order, no containment of this fire as of now. There is a press conference with information that's going to be coming up here in the next 15 minutes or so. It's expected at the top of the hour at 4 o'clock. We've sent our chief photographer, Kevin Hartfield, out to that location, so we'll bring those images and what they have to say live as we continue our coverage into the 4 o'clock hour. But one of the big issues that we have and we've talked about are the road closures that we have in that area. So Highway 34 is closed in both directions as you make your way from the mouth of the Big Thompson all the way out to Estes Park. And this is video shot from earlier. This is going to include areas of Highway 43 as you make your way out to Glen Haven. That's sort of the fork in the road as you get from Highway 34 at Drake to make your way up to Glen Haven. That area closed as well, again, to get folks out of that area. As we take a look at the entire, let me get this and we will get the whole area. Anyway, the evacuation area, it does extend around this, which is the Alexander Mountain Fire, named as such because the fire is burning on that peak, which is on the north side of the Big Thompson Canyon mouth, which is Highway 34 as the Big Thompson River runs through that. So Karen, we're watching the resources not only at Rocky Mountain Airport that are coming in to help battle this fire, we're watching as the battle that blaze, we're watching as crews work to evacuate, and we have volunteers at the centers where they are being evacuated to, both on the east in Loveland and on the west in Estus Park, as well as where animals are being sent off to as well, and we have crews at almost all of those locations that'll be reporting from the scene for us.
Yeah, and plenty of resources out there, thankfully.
Absolutely.
All right, Joel, thank you.
Weather always a big part of any wildfire situation. First Alert meteorologist Joe Rook has been walking us through how the conditions have been shaping up to get to this point and where we are right now, Joe.
Yeah, it continues to evolve, so we keep looking at some of the factors. One thing to note, we're seeing calmer wind gusts to at times our westerly flow finally dominating. You see that in the picture as well, how the smoke is getting lofted. This is a pyrocumulus cloud. What's this mean? Not much. It just gives you a bit of unpredictability. This has been known to produce rain, which we haven't seen just yet, but in other fire examples, it also can produce very radical wind gusts, localized and out of nowhere. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Rob McClure, a photographer, shared that with me just a few minutes ago. Wind gusts, this is still great news. In fact, Lions, we've dropped it. Estes Park, 13 miles per hour. The latest live shots I was seeing are cameras of the fire. Smoke's going straight up. That means it's easier. It's not necessarily a great sign, but weather-wise, there's little to no impact. So firefighters now can get on the offensive and try to really battle the fire line. This is also just updating. I'm liking it that is coming in real time. Two key things that we'll focus on here. The first is your wind direction. Look at this. We're locked with a westerly component. That's good news because you know which way, if at all, the fire attempts to spread. The other good news, these are weak winds. You want to be below 25 miles per hour, and we do that. It still is breezy. This still will have an impact, but this is not the 20 to 25 mile per hour gusts we were potentially going to be contending with. 99 degrees in Loveland. Why do temperatures matter? Well, it could have rained for a few days ago. You get temperatures 5-10 degrees above average with clear skies. Snap a finger, you dry out all the vegetation. That's exactly what we saw. I've also continued to tell you relative humidity, something we wouldn't normally look at, but on a red flag day with an active fire, this impacts fire growth tremendously. Longmont, you're at 7%. Loveland, you're at 11%. We peaked in Loveland just an hour ago at 17%. What is relative humidity? Water vapor in the air. So water vapor versus dry air particles. Think of it, you have a glass, 11% of the glass is water, the rest is dry air. So what's this mean? Think you're having a bonfire, embers popping in all directions. Well, when you have more water vapor on the magnitude of 20, 30, 40%, you smother the embers. When you don't, they can travel, they can hop a highway. So this is only one aspect that we're seeing, but we don't have the wind gusts. So it's not necessarily a bad sign, but my job is to look at the ingredients and assess what will occur. So with all of that said, that's why red flag warnings are to the northwest, but this is a nice reminder. You don't need red flag warnings for elevated fire potential. We were warning all weekend. I-25, we don't have the winds, but we have just about every other ingredient that you could need. So we check the temperature box, we check the relative humidity box, just not quite the winds, and that's why we don't see a red flag warnings. One other thing to assess, rain in Loveland, we're just about less than a quarter inch below where our typical average to date is. We got so front loaded on the front half of the year, front loaded, let's run with, words are slipping, throughout the first few months of the year. And it's been dry so far this summer. That's not a good thing. Summer is hot And when we are dry, well, here's what we get, drought conditions. So what you can assume here, moderate drought for Loveland, very dry timber, very dry grass, and that's fuel, that's vegetation that is fueling the fire. And I think we saw that with how quickly, very quickly, this got its act together. The next 7 to 10 days, very little rain chances. Thursday and Friday, I did tell you about a 10% chance, but that comes with some thunderstorm potential. So not very good relief, guys. Really nothing throughout the 10-day extended outlook.
All right, Joe, thank you for walking us through all that. Now, there are mandatory evacuations in place. Those are in red. We're going to pull up that map for you and give you a good bird's eye view here of the expansive area of this mandatory evacuation. The mandatory area runs along Highway 34. Extends west as the fire moves in that direction. Voluntary evacuations are in place to the east there along the edge of the Loveland city limits there. That area is in yellow there. Anyone in the red area, you know, you should get out immediately. Evacuate as quickly as you can. If you are in the yellow area, you should be ready to leave. Start getting your things ready and all of your things in order right now. We want to take another look at the road closures for you. Highway 34 shut down for firefighter operations. We'll have several crews at this scene right now, of course, to provide live coverage for you. This is Highway 34 there. Of course, stay away from that section of road. It is closed to anyone who does not live in that area.
All right, and we will continue keeping you updated. We'll have another update at 4 o'clock here. Thank you for trusting us. We'll see you at 4 o'clock.
We begin first at Fort today with breaking news as our crews track a wildfire. It is burning right now in Larimer County. What we know at this hour. Well, thank you so much for being with us here on this Monday as we cover this breaking news for you. I'm Karen Lee.
And I'm Michaela White. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered in a wildfire burning in Larimer County. It's being called the Alexander Mountain Fire because of how close it is to the peak there.
Now, that area is about 20 miles west of Loveland. To give you an idea of where this is, smoke, of course, filling the air much of this afternoon. Sadly, you cannot miss it if you've been out there in that area.
This fire, you can see, first reported around 10:30 this morning along Highway 34, which is closed right now. U.S. Forest Service says it has flown over the fire and it has mapped it at 365 acres at this hour. Your reporters are out and about in the area working to learn more for you.
Including Dylan Thomas, who is your reporter for Northern Colorado, was quick to respond to this fire. And Dylan, we know that you've made a lot of phone calls. You've talked with a lot of agencies responding to this wildfire. Where do things stand right now?
You know, and I'm just now pulling you up some updated information. I just spoke with the sheriff's office, the right-hand man for the sheriff himself, and they tell me 28 crews are on scene at this time. That's not individuals. That's 28 crews from 12 different agencies, and there are even more on the way. I'm going to step off camera real quick and show you real quick a live view, though, of this fire. As you can see right here behind me, this is the Alexander Peak fire taking place right here behind me. Now, we have some video from earlier today that we're about to show you. I watched about 5 or 6 different slurry drops, which is the fire retardant, and I'm sure there were many more even when I wasn't able to watch. And there's also been helicopters dropping water buckets as well. It's my understanding that there are 7 aircraft on scene at this time and that there are 4 more on order to be coming out here to help out with this response as well. As of right now, there is 0 containment to be reported, and the media is getting ready to be updated by the sheriff's office at this time. We'll bring more of that information as it continues to come in. But I should note to you that this fire, we've watched it spread. You could see from east of I-25 heading out towards Greeley, you could see flames rising up into the sky at times, and the wind was really something that they were having to battle as well, as at one point it was blowing to the east. Then about 5-10 minutes later, I watched it turn to the west. And then about 20 minutes after that, I watched it turn to the south. And that's why we've seen some of those fire retardant drops on the east, the west, and the south sides. I haven't personally seen any on the north side yet. You may be able to hear my microphone, I'm not sure, but there are still emergency officials responding to the scene with their lights and sirens on at this time. US 34 shut down right here behind me, unless you are one of those who are trying to evacuate the area. As Michaela just mentioned, more than 360 acres have burned. And at this time, I can tell you, the cloud of smoke is just getting bigger and bigger, and the plume stretching even further north than it was earlier today. Reporting live in Loveland, Dylan Thomas covering Colorado First.
Yeah, Dylan, you hit on the weather and how quickly it changes and evolves. We're going to talk to First Alert meteorologist Joe Rook just about how things are setting up right now with the weather. A little good news when it comes to the wind gusts. They are dying down, so hopefully you'll see a little less of that. Thank you for your reporting, and we'll talk to you soon again. Thank you.
And Joel Hillen, too, he's been following this breaking news from the desk. Joel, you brought us this is breaking news at noon. You've been updating us all afternoon now. So what is the latest on the evacuation situation for folks living there?
Yeah, that's the important information right now. If you are in that evacuation, the mandatory evacuation zone, to keep your family safe, this is important information that you need to pay attention to. And I want to show it to you here on our map. This is along US 34 and highway, the county road along there, Highway 43, from Storm Mountain all the way to Masonville along the top, all the way along Highway 34, Highway 43, and then to the south you have Pinewood Reservoir almost out to Pole Hill. This area, this entire area is under mandatory evacuation at this time. That means to leave all of your stuff, grab your go bag and get out of there and get to one of the shelters. Voluntary evacuation areas along Devil's Backbone open space, that's just to the south of Masonville, and then at Carter Lake, just to the north of that, along the Carter Lake Marina area, that is under voluntary evacuation as well. Where do you go? Well, to the west, we have have the evacuation center in Estus Park. That's where we have our Gabby Vidal, who's been reporting from there. And to the east, we have the wildfire evacuation center at Namaqua Elementary School, and that's where we have our Tori Mason that has been reporting for us and collecting information. But that right now is the mandatory and voluntary evacuation areas. I do want to point out another thing from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. They have said that Horsetooth Reservoir is now being utilized in support of wildfire operations and response, so please avoid that area until further notice. And as part of all of this, as we've mentioned, the road is closed, Highway 34, as you get from the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon all the way to Estes Park, and then Highway 43, as well, the county road along there, out to Glen Haven, even out to Estes Park as you get along Devil's Gulch Road. That is closed so that they can evacuate folks safely from that area. Karen and Michaelia, this is something that we've been watching from the desk and will continue to watch from the desk.
And just such a cool breakdown of all of that. Joel, thank you so much for keeping us updated. We appreciate it.
Yep.
And from the desk, Joel just walked us through those evacuation areas. A lot of people being forced from their homes. We don't have exact numbers yet, but we do know it includes some large neighborhoods there just north of Highway 34, including some in the Estes Park area. That's where we're going to find your reporter, Gabriella Vidal, who joins us live from one of those evacuation centers up that way. And Gabby, you've been up there about an hour or so now. More people starting to come in?
Yeah, that's right, Karen and Michaelia. There's definitely more people starting to make their way to the Estes Park Events Complex here in Estes Park. There is the other location that Joel mentioned, the Namaqua Elementary School in Loveland. I actually spoke to a woman who was evacuating from Drake, actually headed towards Loveland, but she was turned around back in this direction towards Estes Park. And she said it was a scary feeling having a knock on her door when she was told to basically evacuate and leave with the essentials. You couldn't take anything. She just had to get up and go and get over here. So a lot of people are experiencing that right now as they're having to evacuate to this location. But let me take you to a closer look at what we're seeing on this side of the Alexander Mountain fire. This is the smoke plume right here, and you could just see it over some of the hills in Estes Park. Again, a lot of people are making their way here slowly. I think we've seen 10 to 15 people sort of trickle their way in. The Red Cross is inside helping people. There's water, there's food, there's all the resources you can need, since obviously this is a probably difficult time for some of the people who were just at home earlier today, not expecting something like this to happen. Again, we're starting to see more cars make their way in, but we'll probably be expecting a lot more as this day progresses and as this fire continues to intensify. Again, this is the Estes Park Events Complex. And again, there's another one at the Namaqua Elementary School in Loveland. So wherever you're headed and wherever you're directed to, there will be available space for you if you need these resources here. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio. Karen and Michaelia.
All right, Gabby, thank you so much. We know that you're going to be out there all evening, and it's always so great to have these evacuation centers set up. They're just vital for the folks that need a place to go, and so that they can get all the information coming into them and a place for them to house their animals and stuff too. Thank you so much, Gabby, for your coverage tonight. We'll check back in, of course, in a little bit with you.
Yeah, and of course, our coverage of this fire is going to continue through the evening. We want to make sure you stay safe.
Yeah, evacuations underway because of the Alexander Mountain fire. Dylan Thomas, of course, standing by with an update when we come back, so don't go anywhere. We have been following breaking news for you all day in northern Colorado. We're talking about and keeping an eye on the Alexander Mountain Fire. It is burning west right now of Loveland. The U.S. Forest Service estimates it is more than about 360 acres right now. They think about 365. There are, as you might expect, a ton of firefighters on the ground working hard on this, as well as various aircraft dropping slurry and water drops on this as well.
And we'll check in with Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas is your reporter in northern Colorado. Dylan, you live in that area. You actually told us you were looking out your window. You saw that smoke shortly after that fire started and headed that way for us.
And because of our community journalists spread throughout Colorado, we are the first and only station to bring you this headline. From the moment the fire started, 5 hours later now, as you can see behind me, the fire is still burning at this time. I'll step off camera and give you a look at the live scene as to what we are seeing right now. I should note the fire, when it first started, was pretty much limited just to this ridge line right over here that I'm zoomed in on. It was pretty much capped right out there. And in the 4 to 5 hours since we first saw it burning, it is now stretched to the north further and further and further. This is the Alexander Mountain Fire, which is now stretching several miles to the north. As you can see right now, the plume of smoke continuing to billow at this time. As I mentioned earlier, the flames were visible from as far east as western Greeley, which is dozens of miles away from where we are right now. It has been a little bit of time since we have seen visible flames from this far out, but we are still seeing emergency officials flying up and down US 34, making their way out to respond to this area. And as we are here on air, we're seeing more and more camper vehicles like this one traveling eastbound. Obviously, I don't know if that specific person is evacuating or not, but we have seen more and more people who are heading away from that area. And this parking lot I'm in right now is actually labeled, they gave us permission to be here, but they said other than that, they only want law enforcement and evacuees to be parked here. And as you can see, there are campers and trucks full of stuff that people have pulled out from their homes, presumably west on US 34, and then made their way east toward the Front Range. And also one quick note, these individuals right here are setting up signs that are telling people if you plan on heading west into the canyon, then you better have ID ready to prove that you live in this area. So make sure to stay with us. We'll continue to bring you updates throughout the day on this developing story here along US 34 in northern Colorado.
And Dylan, from your vantage point too, how is the fire looking at this point?
As I mentioned, you can't really see any flames really coming up as much, so hopefully that's a good sign. But then again, the fire has stretched to the north, and it's over a second ridgeline. Therefore, the vantage point we have is now a little more limited than it was earlier.
That's all right, Dylan. Thank you so much.
Weather, we know, obviously going to play a big role in this fire, and it has up until this point. It's hot, it's dry out there, and for now, we have learned the wind is working with us, not against us. So a little good news there. First Alert meteorologist Joe Rook is up next with a look at where things are right now and how our evening looks as crews battle the Alexander Mountain Fire.
Yeah, for sure. What we will watch, we'll run through our checklist because 2 out of 3 boxes are checked. Not quite the winds. They are our friend. We also have dangerous heat on tap for tomorrow. Busy day in the weather world. I'll break it all down after the break.
Updating our breaking news this evening for you. This wildfire burning near Loveland tonight. The Alexander Mountain Fire, more than 360 acres, about 365. We know mandatory and voluntary evacuations are in place. Shelters and evac centers are open, and they are, of course, helping people out right now.
Meteorologist Joe Rook with us now. Joe, it's hot and dry. That's playing a role in this. So is the wind. But thankfully, that wind is cooperating right now with us.
Exactly. Really a good sign. What we're seeing, a lot of our smoke plumes, and Dylan shot there, it's going straight up. Now, there's a westerly component to the wind. Here's our wind barbs here. So what we'll start to see, I don't think winds stay this calm the whole time. A bit of a directional change with our smoke plume versus straight up. Very calm winds still, and that's a very good sign. There was a chance with our forecast at least, where we would be seeing our wind gust up to about 20, 25 miles per hour. So a few good things. Let's break this down. The first, wind direction stays the same westerly all the way through the overnight hours. That means that the front edge of the fire continues in the same direction, so firefighters know where to target, and winds stay well below our 25 mile per hour threshold for the red flag warnings, where you can start to get at least one of the ingredients for rapid fire growth. Another ingredient is temperatures. It's right now 95 degrees in Loveland. That's about 5 degrees above average. It was even warmer just an hour or two ago, and this can mitigate any beneficial rain we get, because above average temperatures with sunshine dries up all the vegetation down towards the surface. And another thing, all day we've been looking at relative humidity. It is bone dry. This is a measurement of vapor in the atmosphere, water vapor. Think of your glass 11% full in Loveland. The rest is dry air. When you get some of our embers popping up off the fire, dry air allows these embers to survive and hop a highway even. So that's another thing we look at for fire growth. We were up to 17% in Loveland. Now we're down to 11%. 12% tends to be our threshold. So for now, with calm winds, we should help mitigate concerns of fire growth, but this is not a good sight to see as dry air continues. And one more thing with the fire, it's dry throughout the extended forecast. Through Sunday, I'm looking at about a 10% chance of a shower or thunderstorm. That's Thursday and Friday, very limited, and that actually could work against us. That's the latest with the fire. I'll continue to keep you updated as new information comes in, but what else we have to unpack? First alert weather day, it is hot and it is dry to start the week for most of the week and even into the weekend. So for today through 6 o'clock, we do have heat advisories for El Paso as well as portions of Fremont County. For tomorrow, northern I-25, Boulder, Denver, and just east of Evergreen will be included. Dangerous heat will be on tap. That's why today is the day. Get as much mitigation for the fires as we can, because now you're factoring in dangerous heat fields. So not necessarily record heat. Look at the bottom. I've highlighted it for you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But these are temperatures 5 to 10 degrees above average for a prolonged period of time. And I think tomorrow will be the hottest of them all. 70s, 80s for the high country, upper 90s as you head out towards the western slope. Look at this purple though. 106 for Lamar, triple digits in Greeley, Fort Collins, Boulder right at 98. Forecasting 99 for the metro area, within a few degrees of record, and 100 will be on tap for northern portions of I-25. Now, what else makes a return tomorrow? Wildfire smoke will just continue to increase, but not all of us see it. Let me put this into motion throughout this afternoon. It's more so light to 1 or 2 isolated pockets of moderate smoke, but watch by tomorrow. See a lot of us starting to pick up on some light smoke with a heavier wave slowly but surely headed our way. So air quality concerns, ozone alerts. We hold on to an active, eventful week of hot and dry conditions. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more updates headed your way as far as the fire is concerned right after the break.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on CBS News Colorado. We are following breaking news in Larimer County, the Alexander Mountain Fire causing evacuations. We've been keeping you updated all afternoon long. That fire is now more than 360 acres. And we know the Larimer Sheriff just posting on X, there are many resources on scene. That includes a Black Hawk, 2 Type 1 helicopters, 1 Type 3 helicopter, all working to get this all under control. As of now, no containment that we know of so far.
Your reporters covering your neighborhood tonight. We continue our team coverage for you with Tori Mason. Tori, you're at an animal evacuation center. It's called The Ranch in Larimer County. We know you've been out there talking with volunteers and folks who need a place to safely hold their pets.
Yes, Karen, and an organizer tells me that this is just the hello phase. The last time we checked in, there was just a single trailer full of horses brought in by a local rescue team. Now, as you can see here behind me, there are several trailers waiting to get in, and several more are coming. Now, these fires, they actually take a toll on the horses, too. A lot of them have never left the farm. Some of them actually had to be sedated to get here. Now, right now, they can take about 24 horses. They're still setting up more stalls here at the ranch. It's where they're doing the larger animal evacuation. So really anything larger than a sheep is coming here. Now, on the drive up, we were listening to dispatchers list off addresses of homes with animals that needed help. We spoke to a woman who evacuated and had to leave some of her animals behind.
4-H kids have worked hard all week, and now here we are, and a lot of us have evacuated our other animals to be here, and everything's kind of thrown in, and all the families that are, even closer than we are and mandatory. It's scary. It's scary trying to figure out what are you taking.
And they actually expect a few more animals to be coming in, and they're not sure if they're going to be injured or not. So they've asked us to, respect the owner's privacy and sort of stay away from the check-in area. As you can imagine, they might be a bit emotional. We actually saw one of the owners out here praying, and our thoughts are certainly with him and everyone else who's impacted by this, guys.
Yeah, Tori, we so understand that, and we appreciate you being out there and bringing that to us. It just is so great to see all the volunteers and all those families arriving with their animals. So great to see. Tori, thank you. Still ahead on First at 4, we're going to check back in with your reporters as we stay on top of developments in the Alexander Mountain Fire.
We've got you covered. Stay with us. First at 4.
We continue to follow the breaking news right here on CBS News Colorado of that wildfire. It's burning in Larimer County and Big Thompson Canyon.
Yeah, let's get you caught up on the latest. The Alexander Mountain Fire is currently an estimated 365 acres. But weather conditions, they are dry, they are hot. Thankfully, the wind is cooperating as of now for those crews as they work to fight this fire, to battle these flames here. We've seen planes and helicopters making drops, and that is giving a big boost to crews on the ground there. Evacuation orders also in place, and there are evacuation centers for people and their animals.
Dylan Thomas, your reporter for all of northern Colorado, leading our team coverage today. Dylan, you've been reporting since truly just minutes after this fire started. So what is the latest?
Yeah, Karen, I first saw the fire out of my window, called it into the station, and called the Loveland Fire Department, and they said we're getting calls about this right now. So we have quite literally been bringing you updates on this fire since the moment it started. I'm going to step off camera right now and see if you're able to see what I'm seeing from over here. Every once in a while, you'll see a helicopter pop over this ridge line over here. It looks like at this time there's none to see right now, but what they've been doing is going back behind that ridge line. I believe it's Glade Reservoir that is behind that ridge line. They've been scooping up buckets of water and then flying it toward the fire. Right now they are not on camera, but they were right before we came over to me. And as you can see, the fire continuing to burn though. This is west of Loveland, north of US 34. Hopefully it doesn't spread to the south, and I guess hopefully it doesn't spread much more in general. But as you can see, the flames continued to go at this hour. It's been about 5 hours since this fire started. It's my understanding that there are 28 fire crews, I should say, 28 fire crews on scene from 12 different agencies, and more are on their way. The sheriff's office, which many may not know, here in Colorado, the sheriff in each county is actually the fire marshal. So the sheriff's office telling me that they have 12 different agencies on scene and more on their way, seven different aircraft on scene as well, with 4 more on order. So they're definitely taking this very seriously. There are the mandatory evacuations. At this time, we don't know of any containment at all, and we also do not know if there have been any structures burned. We will continue to bring you updates on this as we receive them. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Dylan, thank you so much.
Joel Hillen has been following the breaking news from the desk for us, and that is where, of course, we gather all of our breaking news details, and then we're able to pass them along to you, our viewers. Joel, you're handling evacuations, shelters, and, of course, the roads that are opened and closed.
Yeah, so let's start with that. We've got Highway 34 and County Road 43 that are closed right in the heart of where this fire is, and that is right along the Big Thompson River. The fire, of course, on the mountain on the north side in the mouth of the Big Thompson Canyon. I want to show you the map for the mandatory evacuations that are in place. This entire red area here is under a mandatory evacuation. At the top, you have Storm Mountain all the way to Masonville, and then from Pole Hill, Pinewood Reservoir all the way out to Carter Lake. This area in the yellow that you're seeing are the voluntary evacuation. They are asking folks to be ready there to evacuate, but if you are in the red, you should evacuate. We have Highway 34, which is closed, Highway 43, which is closed all the way up from Estus Park to the dam store on the west side, and then the dam store to the east, with the evacuation centers located at Namaqua in Loveland at the elementary school there, and then at Estes Park at the Estes Park Events Complex. And then they are evacuating animals at the animal shelter that's at 5290 Arena Circle. That's where we have our Tory Mason. I do want to mention that one of the latest things that we've received here at the desk is information that the Douglas County Sheriff's Office is sending their helitack team to Larimer County to assist with the Alexander Mountain Fire. And they say, be safe and thank you for your dedication to serve. And so, Karen and Michaelia, we've got resources that are coming from across the state, including from the fire burning on the western slope. They are now moving those resources from the Kings Canyon fire, which is now 213 acres and 10% containment, to the fire here.
And Joel, we know you've been here since 4 o'clock this morning, keeping us updated since the fire broke this at noon. We really appreciate all your hard work on the desk, so we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, taking a live look outside now from our Mile High City camera, and we want to turn it over to First Alert Chief Meteorologist, Joe Rook, with a look at that forecast.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, guys, this is a photo from just a bit earlier today. It's similar, though, to what we're seeing. The westerly winds are really here. They're dominating. That is a sign of good news. This is also a pyrocumulus cloud, so we pay close attention to that. It can act sporadically. It can produce some unexpected wind gusts. Just something to keep in mind, something we'll watch for. Now, what I can tell you, here's the latest. I promised you our air quality alerts. For Larimer County, we're dealing with wildfire smoke at this point, but high ozone will return tomorrow across much of the Front Range, as well as wildfire smoke. So air quality is just terrible. All right, let's get to some nitty-gritty weather impacting the fire. Our wind gusts, this is just great news. We are still calm around the fire. Estus Park up to about 20 miles per hour, but the westerly flow is dominated. Why does that matter? Well, now we have a front line of the fire rather than all the sporadic motions Dylan was telling us about earlier. We're locked in with the westerly wind through 1 a.m. and with so many resources on the fire and us well below the 25-mile-per-hour wind magnitude that we want to stay below. I think a lot of good news in the weather world is shaping up. We are looking at wind gusts for the record here. Same direction and calm, at least compared to our 25-degree magnitude that we look for. So this is some good news out towards Loveland. We checked the box of the heat. We checked the box of low humidity, but the wind is not quite there. This does serve as a nice reminder that even though there's no red flag warning issued, there still is elevated fire concerns. And guys, we do need to unpack once again wildfire smoke and near record heat on tap for tomorrow. Busy in the weather world. I'll get you the full first alert forecast in just a bit.
All right, Joe, thank you. Well, this fire we know forcing a lot of people out of their homes, including some living near the Estes Park area.
Let's check back in with your reporter, Gabriela Vidal. She joins us live from an evacuation center out that way. So, Gabriela, what are you seeing where you are right now?
Yeah, Michaela and Karen, we are seeing a lot more people trickle in to the event center here in Estes Park as they're being evacuated from different parts of the area where these mandatory evacuation zones are taking place. A lot of people coming in from the Drake area, and I'll have more on this about a woman who we spoke to who actually evacuated from that area, came towards Estes Park, couldn't find the event center, and then went her way back to Drake before she was stopped by troopers out there telling her to make her way back into this area, but she did make it in safely inside. I'm going to show you what the smoke plume looks like here first. This is right here, the Alexander Mountain fire from the Estes Park area, and you can see that smoke plume just rising exponentially. But again, this is one of the two locations. Namaqua Elementary School is the other location where people can go if they are being told to evacuate. That's in Loveland. But this location here in Estes Park, the events complex, this is at 1125 Rooftop Way for those who may be having trouble getting over here, like one woman we spoke to. And she actually details the moments and just her feeling about having to evacuate her home that she's had for more than 20 years.
I'm in shock. You know, we live our lives as everything's going to be normal. And I'm just hoping that people are all right.
And one thing that she said that was really heartwarming is that a lot of people were checking on her in her home just as she was getting ready to get her things and evacuate. It just goes to show that there are a lot of people here that are really looking out for one another as this fire continues to unfold. And we'll be here talking to more individuals as they're making their way to the event center. Live in Estes Park, Gabriela Vidal covering Colorado First.
It is beautiful to see. Gabriela, thank you so much for that.
More of your reporters in your communities when we come back.
Another quick update regarding the fire that we're watching closely just west of Loveland. We're going to look at temperatures because this does play a pretty big role. I can just tell you, flat out hot towards Denver and Brighton, but you jump up towards Loveland, 95 degrees. So we are region-wide, front range-wide 10 degrees above average. And real quick, why does that matter? Well, let's say we picked up rain a few days ago, which we didn't, but with temperatures surging up above average, sunshine in full force, that really dries out some of our surface layer vegetation. And that's the first step we look at towards fueling the fire. Another one all day, I've been talking about relative humidity. This might not be something we'll include in a typical forecast. What is it? It's water vapor within a molecule of air. So for example, 11% in Loveland, it's actually trending in the wrong direction, supporting fire growth. We were up to 17% earlier today. Think of this as water puts out fire. So if you have higher numbers, 20, 30, 40%, as an ember pops, some of the water vapor suffocates it and puts it out. You don't get that at 11% below our 12% threshold. This would support some fire growth, but the good news is the winds aren't quite there as of now. One other factor to look at, drought conditions just west of Loveland, moderate with severe conditions north and south. This would also suggest very similar to our warm temperatures, just a whole lot of vegetation is available to burn, and we did see a quick jump in the fire. Let me go out through Sunday very quickly because it is not looking good. It's only Monday, and we've got 7 to 10 days left to go of hot and dry conditions on the horizon. So we really need to use some common sense with any potential fire starting activities, even with the grill for the next few days. First alert weather day today and tomorrow, hot and dry. We probably could put this through the remainder of the week. Any plans you have for this evening, plan on it being hot. Please keep in mind with any grilling concerns. And overnight tonight, we're mild as well. We are dry. There's just not much of a surprise across much of the metro area through 6 o'clock tonight. So hot for El Paso, Fremont County that we do have heat advisories issued. By tomorrow, Fort Collins, as well as Larimer County, southern portions of that, Boulder, Denver, and just east of Evergreen, eastern Jefferson County, a heat advisory has been issued. Dangerous heat. Take care of your body, stay hydrated, perhaps try and avoid or reconsider any strenuous activity outside. I think tomorrow, Tuesday, will be the hottest day of this heat wave that's headed our way. I've put our records here across the bottom. It's not quite record heat, but it is still 7 to 14 days in total once all is said and done, with temperatures 5 to 10 degrees above average and above the 90-degree mark. So it will take a toll on your body as we get throughout really the remainder of this week. As far as our highs tomorrow, below triple digits for the western slope, 70s, 80s out across the high country. Highway 50, buckle up. 103 in Pueblo, 106 in Lamar, and some triple digits up across I-76 as well. 99 for the metro area, even the west side, Lakewood at 97. Pay close attention. Loveland, Longmont, where that fire's burning, triple digits for the day tomorrow. Any vegetation, if not already dry, it will continue. 97 Centennial, South Glen, as well as Greenwood Village. One other thing, a lot of people probably not really looking forward to hearing about, wildfire smoke scattered looks to make a return for tomorrow. You do see some pockets of it out the door tomorrow morning, and then we do see even more building by tomorrow afternoon, and that will have an impact on the air quality, and it is an ozone action alert day. We are dry and hot through the remainder of the forecast. More fire updates, they're headed your way after the break.
This fire forcing a lot of people out of their homes.
Yeah, the Larimer County Sheriff's Office helping keep people informed as they leave. Your reporters were there for the update just minutes ago.
So my name is David Moore. I'm the Executive Director at the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. This morning at 10:39 a.m. we received a 911 call of smoke reported west of Sylvandale Ranch. Multiple agencies responded, discovered a wildfire, and they've been fighting that fire ever since. The Larimer County Sheriff's Office has opened up the Joint Information Center at the Sheriff's Office. That number is 970-980-2500. The public can call that number for information regarding animal evacuations, their own evacuations, where they should go, what they should do, and any type of resources that they might need while they are out of their homes. So we highly encourage folks to call that number. Again, that number is 970-980-2500. So the fire is currently estimated at 339 acres with 0% containment. We have a ton of resources here, and I'm going to rattle off some names of some fire agencies that are here assisting us. I know I'm going to forget some, and I apologize to them. Obviously, the Larimer County Sheriff's Office Emergency Services Unit, Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, United States Forest Service, Estus Park, Berthoud, Front Range, Rocky Mountain National Park, Windsor, Allens Park, Glen Haven, and Pinewood Springs. Again, I know I probably forgot some, and I apologize to them, but we certainly appreciate their help. As of about an hour ago, we had a total of, I'm sorry, let me back up. There are multiple evacuation areas at this time, mandatory and voluntary. People can go to nocoalert.org to see the map of where those evacuations are. To put it into context, though, in the mandatory evacuation area, that notification was sent to 2,635 contacts. The involuntary was sent to 1,491 contacts. And I want to make it very clear, contacts are not individual homes and they're not individual people. Those are devices that have been registered to receive those alerts in those areas. So for instance, at my house, I count as 4 contacts because I've signed up to receive the alert 4 different ways. So again, those are not individual homes or contacts.
Can you repeat the numbers?
Yes, 2,635 contacts for the mandatory evacuation area and 1,491 contacts for the involuntary. We have 2 evacuation centers open. The Namaqua Elementary School in Loveland, that's at 209 North Namaqua Avenue, and the Estus Park Events Complex at 1125 Rooftop Way in Estus Park. We have multiple air resources on scene with additional air resources ordered. We have a Black Hawk, 2 Type 1 helicopters, 1 Type 3 helicopter, 2 heavy air tankers, 2 seats, 2 Super Scoopers, 1 Type 2 helicopter, and again, we have additional air resources ordered to come in along with additional personnel.
And stick around, we're back with more after the break. Stay with us. And we'll check in with Joe for one last look at your first alert forecast.
So, Joe, what are you keeping a close eye on right now?
I was just going to say there's so much to discuss. Let's take a break from the fire. I'll touch on that in just a few minutes because record heat. Today, we tied the record from 1877, 1995, and 2005. We just can't seem to break the 99-degree mark. So officially at the airport, we have tied the record. So now, here we go. The record heat, we can call it, is on tap. This heat wave is just getting started. I think, or originally thought, Tuesday would be the warmest day of this heat wave. So you know what? Let's keep that trend alive. Looks like 98, 99 on tap once again tomorrow. And what I haven't been able to get to, by Thursday and Friday, you may be thinking, all right, 10% chance of a shower. That brings some relief, mitigates some fire concerns. Here's why it's a bad thing. Whole lot of dry air at the surface, so we could get something called dry thunderstorms. You still get lightning to occur with no rain. Well, all that electricity and heat and energy in one little area. So we'll keep a close eye, guys, on Thursday and Friday. But right now, not looking like really any relief at all from the heat or the fire weather will be on tap.
All right. Thank you, Joe. And some other news today, a double murder investigation underway in Denver after the bodies of a woman and a young girl discovered in an apartment on Syracuse Street by Central Park. Witnesses share that police arrived on scene around 5 o'clock in the morning. Officers say they've been in contact with everyone involved. They did not say if they have named a suspect or suspects. Neighbors tell CBS Colorado that the area has gotten worse this past year, with some saying they're moving out due to concerns over burglaries, theft, domestic violence spilling out into the street. An investigation continues.
In Douglas County, investigators still working to figure out what led up to a 6-vehicle crash. It left I-25 closed for hours on Sunday afternoon. Troopers say 1 man died and 6 others were taken to the hospital. It happened near the Larkspur exit just after noon, and the highway reopened around 4 o'clock. Again, that cause is still under investigation.
Now to an update out of Aurora, where we are learning that the Veterans Affairs Hospital has resumed surgeries on a limited basis following a months-long freeze. The VA put all procedures on hold after staff detected unknown residue on some medical equipment. Officials say that recent tests have shown promising results. The VA hopes to return to full operations by August 12th.
And thousands of janitors in the Denver metro area will stay on the job. That's after union leaders struck a deal with cleaning contractors. It'll make Denver one of the highest paid cities for janitors in the country. Service Employees International Union Local 105, which represents about 2,400 janitors in and around Denver, say they reached a 4-year deal. It includes 16 to 18% wage increases, protections against excessive workloads, guaranteed paid sick leave, and other protections and benefits. That deal comes after union members warned they'd strike starting Sunday if they couldn't reach a fair deal. Members will vote to ratify that contract this week. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us for Step 4. Our coverage of the Alexander Mountain Fire continues at 5 for you.
Yeah, taking a live look at the skies there for you. And blue skies, it is hot and dry out there for sure. More on that weather coming up on this first alert weather day. CBS Colorado at 5 starts now. And we do want to get right to that breaking news for you. This view from our copter showing you why. A large plume of smoke coming out of the foothills in Larimer County. We have been talking about and covering for you the Alexander Mountain wildfire burning tonight with no containment so far. We have seen the help from the air when it comes to battling this fire, excuse me, including air tankers, helicopters, all so very important as crews work to protect nearby homes and businesses. Mandatory evacuations in place due to the Alexander Mountain wildfire. Voluntary evac orders have been issued for some other neighborhoods. This fire last estimated to be at around 339 acres.
So far, no reports of any homes being lost or any injuries with this, thankfully. That fire located along Highway 34 between Drake and Loveland. The highway there has been closed.
We do have you covered on this fire tonight with our team coverage of your reporters, including Tori Mason, Gabriela Vidal, covering evacuation centers for you. We want to start, though, with your reporter in our northern newsroom, Dylan Thomas, who has been out on that scene all day long today. Dylan?
Yeah, and as you can see behind me, the flames continuing to burn, and now the wind has shifted to the south, which is making the plume then move to the south as well. I'm going to go ahead and step off camera real quick so you can get a little bit of a new angle to this. But the flames, you were able to see them from as far away as western Greeley at one point earlier today, and we have talked about the wind shifting throughout the day. At one point, for most of the day, it was moving to the east, and then it kind of shifted right around 1:30 toward the west, and now they're blowing to the south. I will say the plume from my vantage point indicates that the fire spread significantly to the north compared to where it originally started. But with a fire this large, over 360 acres in size in just a matter of a couple hours, the sheriff's office, which is leading this investigation and this response, just told us that they're doing everything they can, but in the end, it comes down to finding the resources when many of the resources are taken up at fires to our northwest.
We are doing the best we can with the resources we have. We have a lot of engines from all over Colorado coming to help us. We do have a couple of hand crews. One from the sheriff's office is up on the fire. They're the only hand crew up on the fire right now. All the other engines and other resources are out at the homes, making sure people are evacuated and making sure we can protect the homes. That's our main focus for today, is just making sure that people are out of the way.
And it's my understanding that there are 28 different crews here, which crews could vary in size as for individual personnel, and that they're from 12 different agencies, but that number is expected to grow as more people make their way here. It's my understanding the Douglas County Sheriff's Office is now sending their helicopter up here to try and help out as well, just showing how this is going to be a collective effort from around Colorado to try and make sure that this fire doesn't spread any further than it already has. Reporting live tonight in Western Loveland, Dylan Thomas covering Colorado First.
Dylan, thank you so much for being out there all day for us and bringing those important updates for folks living in that area. We appreciate it.
Now we want to get a better idea on the evacuation area involved here. We head to the desk there, which is where all breaking news details come into. You see your reporter there, Andrew Hobner. Andrew, no reports of any problems getting people evacuated so far.
No major problems with the evacuation notices at this point. We'll jump right into the map and show you exactly what it is that we are looking at here. So right at the bottom of your screen, you can see Denver on the map. And then as we go a little higher up toward Loveland and zoom in, then you start to see where the road closures are stretching from Estus Park all the way out toward Loveland. And in red, you see the mandatory evacuation areas. In yellow here, you see the voluntary evacuation efforts. Now, the one thing that is interesting just about this map, you might notice that these are large swaths of territory that aren't necessarily burning or under the direct threat of fire right now. Emergency services did say in that press conference that Dylan referenced that they wanted to basically make large zones of evacuations. So if that fire did move out, if the winds got worse or the fire itself got worse, they would not be behind the eight ball in trying to get people evacuated. Now, the one thing for folks in these areas is that if you want text updates, you text LC-EVAC, that's LC-EVAC, to 888-777, and you will be given text message updates about when the evacuations come, if they do come, for your area up in this vicinity of Larimer County as this fire continues, guys.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Your reporter, Tori Mason, continues our coverage tonight. She's at an evacuation center in Larimer County.
And part of these evacuations, Tori, involve all the livestock that live in that area. A lot of people have large animals that need help.
Yes, and we're just taking a few steps back here to give you a view of what we've been looking at this whole time. So right now what they're doing is they're loading all of the horses that were rescued into their stalls here. They've actually had to build a few more to accommodate them. And it's not as simple as just, taking a horse out of it. The fire has a lot of them really on edge, and they've been a little hard to manage. A lot of the trailers that you've been seeing out here aren't even being driven by the animals' owners. Now, one woman told us, if you have a tractor trailer, you get up and you help. Their friend gave them the address of a person who had like 10 horses, no trailer, needed to get him out. She's like, all right, let's do it. And they brought him here. And they're still working to set up more stalls. There's a fair going on at the same time as this, which has obviously been postponed. So a lot of those 4-H girls, a lot of the people that were involved in that are here helping as well. We're told that of the smaller animals, they can go to the NOCO Humane Society. I actually think that we have an alpaca coming out of this one. I'm trying to stretch this out so you guys can see it. It's been a really amazing experience to see all these animals coming out and being helped into their stalls.
Tori, so joyful, I'm sure. And I know people are super, super stressed. They want to take such good care of their animals, but we just always love to see everyone coming together and to making sure they're taking care of these animals and keeping them in such a safe spot. It's just fantastic.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll be able to check back in with you later and show you what some of this looks like.
Tori, thank you so much.
Well, fires like this are always a concern when we get this hot. This is a First Alert weather day. First Alert meteorologist Joe Brook in the Weather Center for us.
And Joe, have the winds been an issue in this fire area?
Not necessarily. Let me explain what's happening. We're going to get real nitty gritty here. So you go up in elevation. This is obviously burning on Alexander's Mountain, I believe. So as you go up towards the crest, winds are 8 to 14 miles per hour. And this is what our wind map's picking up on, your westerly flow. But now here's the latest. As you drop down towards about 6,500 feet on the east side of the fire, so now we're dropping in elevation, coming to the opposite side, winds are actually very light from the east. Fire can create its own weather, its own wind, so winds are almost converging on the fire. That would be a good sign up to this point, but it won't stay that way this whole time. So that's what I'll be watching in real time throughout the shows tonight. But this is the good news. I keep showing you our wind maps, and we are nowhere near 25 miles per hour. These aren't necessarily calm winds, but this would indicate at least the consistency in wind direction that this will be a fire weather-wise that we can stay on top of. Yeah, certainly have the temperatures. Take a look right now, 98 in Loveland, 97 in Denver, but this is drying out all the vegetation in the area. Right now, air quality alert through 9 a.m. tomorrow. This is for the wildfire smoke. I've kept the ozone in there because by tomorrow we likely will be dealing with ozone alerts once again. A whole lot of weather that we're tracking here in the weather world. And on top of that, one reminder, let this serve. Northwest, this is where we have our red flag warnings. Nothing issued for I-25, and we're dealing with a fire just because it's not critical doesn't mean elevated fire concerns don't exist.
All right, Joe, thank you. And we continue our breaking news coverage tonight on the Alexander Mountain wildfire.
Yeah, for people west of that fire, there's also an evacuation center open in Estus Park. Your reporter, Gabriela Vidal, is there tonight for us. So, Gabriela, what have you been seeing?
Well, Michaelia and Karen, we've been seeing more people make their way from these evacuation areas into the Estes Park Events Complex. The parking lot is starting to get a lot more full, and I went inside to see people kind of settling down. There is cots in there, there are seating areas, there's food, there's shelter, and I spoke to the Red Cross, and they say they also have available space for people to stay the night if it comes down to that. Now, I'm going to take a step to the side so you can see the smoke plume that we've been seeing all day from this side in Estes Park. It feels like it's doubled in the last couple of minutes, in the last 30 minutes or so since we last spoke to you. But yeah, again, a lot of smoke that we're seeing out there right now. And we've spoken to a number of people who've been making their way into this event center. They say that they're coming from Drake or other parts that had mandatory evacuations. While some didn't want to speak on camera, others were telling us that, you know, it was kind of scary getting a knock on their door, telling them to evacuate and get out without barely taking any of their belongings with them. And one woman that we spoke to, she said she was shocked to know that this was all taking place just outside, just near her home that she's had for over 20 years. And when we asked her what she thinks about the wildfires this season, this is what she had to say.
I think it's the heat. This is the second hottest year I've ever been in Colorado, and I've been here for 50 years. I mean, 100-degree weather in Netherlands, it would be about 70. So we have to do something.
One thing the Red Cross wanted to tell me to inform the public is if you're wanting more information about what's taking place, dial 888-777 on your phone. You can text that number and type in NOCO alerts, NOCO alerts, and you can get up-to-date information on what's taking place in your area. That way you guys can get the latest information. We're live in Estes Park. Gabriela Vidal covering Colorado First.
Important information, Gabriela. Thank you so much. Viewers like you have been sharing pictures of this fire. Thank you for sending them in to us. And we know that smoke can be seen for quite some distance. Alyssa Oliver shared this picture from near Cedar Cove. You can see the smoke billowing over the mountains there. We just got an update from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. We know it's 339 acres with no containment so far.
This heat only adding to our fire danger. Your reporter in Jefferson County, Andrew Homner, showed us the quick effort to contain small fire. It popped up along Highway 285 Sunday near Turkey Creek Park. It didn't burn close to some homes. Some families did get out. The sheriff's office crediting the work of volunteer firefighters for helping make sure this one didn't get any worse.
We are following a developing story in Denver. A double homicide investigation is underway after police were called to a home on Syracuse Street early Monday morning. A woman and a young girl were both killed. One victim died at the scene, another at a hospital. No information on a suspect has been released, but police say they reached out to all involved parties in that alleged crime.
Well, we will stay on top of our breaking news tonight with the Alexander Mountain wildfire in Larimer County.
Evacuations remain in place and Highway 34 is closed as of right now. We know that there is help from the air with water drops on that fire. Look for another live update coming up in just a few minutes.
I continue to keep a close eye on the weather conditions at the fire. It also will be a day of near record heat for tomorrow. Elevated fire concerns. Yeah, some wildfire smoke is back on the horizon. A whole lot going on in the weather world. We'll unpack it all in just a bit.
All right, and questions tonight over the results of presidential election in Venezuela. We're going to check in with people here from Venezuela about that controversy.
I'm your Northern Colorado reporter Dylan Thomas, joining you live right now from Western Loveland, where we continue to follow the developing story about this fire, the Alexander Mountain fire that started just after 10:30 in the morning, and we've pretty much been on air since the fire began. As you can see right here behind me, the plume continuing to rise into the sky. This is just west of Loveland on US 34, north of the Big Thompson River on Alexander Mountain. The fire burning several hundred acres. We will continue to bring you updates on this throughout the evening. Make sure to stick with us here on CBS News Colorado for the rest of the 5 o'clock and then the 6 o'clock hour, and also on our stream, cbsnewscolorado.com. We'll send it back to you.
Dylan, thank you for being out there all day for us. We are so appreciative of that.
Developing tonight at 5, Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro has claimed victory at Sunday's presidential election in that country. The opposition also claiming victory as well, pointing to exit polling, showing Maduro's challenger captured a clear majority. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken questioning the outcome and asking for transparency.
We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people.
Across Colorado, Venezuelan immigrants are watching closely, many crying foul. As Karen Morfitt tells us, they'd expressed hope for an end to the economic and political crisis that has spurred so much immigration from Venezuela.
The Target parking lot at Havana in Mississippi had the aftermath of a roller coaster night. Venezuelan immigrants had gathered there Sunday to watch election returns. This group doesn't want fellow Aurorians to think poorly of their countrymen, so they're cleaning up the mess left behind.
I want to do the solution of the problem, not the problem.
Genesis Salum Rosas says Nicolas Maduro's victory declaration is a total fraud. She points to vote tallies she followed on social media showing overwhelming support for opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez.
We've had 25 years and would have 6 more years of dictatorship that Venezuela will never get out of. That's why people are upset and in the streets protesting, because they do not accept that this is the verdict.
Salum Rosa showed us videos sent by friends of people taking to the streets back home. She says Venezuelans are desperate and that if the country continues on this path, more people will flee the country.
With what's happening, if this government doesn't fall, it will be more than double the emigration that's occurred in recent years.
That's Karen Morfitt reporting for us. Today, Governor Polis issued a statement on the Venezuelan election, saying in part what's happening in that country illustrates the importance of backing leaders in our country who support democratic electoral processes. It is a First Alert weather day now. First Alert meteorologist Joe Rourke is with us. And Joe, all eyes, of course, on the weather as we battle this wildfire.
Yeah, we got the fire, we got record temperatures, we got the heat wave. Where's the relief? Let's get into it all. I got a lot to unpack. I want to start with relative humidity. I've touched on this just about all day, and it's something we need to pay close attention to because we're starting to see a downward trend. Look at Loveland up here. We're now down to 10%. In real time, this keeps updating. This is fire growth potential, one way to look at it. We're looking at water vapor in the atmosphere. Embers pop off the fire. Will they survive and be able to spread, or will they be suffocated by moisture? 10% is below our 12% threshold, so therefore we do have one ingredient fire-wise in place. Some good news, though, why we can't fully say everything's in place is due to the lack of wind potential. So we'll continue to monitor all the ingredients as they continue to come in real time. Another thing that we watch, so we know that embers can survive, how's our vegetation looking? We have a moderate drought with severe conditions both north and south that would suggest, yes, we've picked up a lot of rain this year, but not of late, and with temperatures well above average, dry conditions all the way through Sunday. It is not looking like much relief for this week. So with that, I do ask, please, let's use some common sense. Maybe even hold off on grilling because really this week looks to be active. It's only Monday and we're already seeing the impacts of the hot and dry start to the week. And that is why today, after all of this, is a First Alert weather day. We are tracking record temperatures for today. We just can't break this record. 1877, 1995, and 05 we hit 99 degrees, and now 2024 will add to that list. So 4 times we've hit it, never being able to break it. The next 12 hours, you can guess, it will stay hot and dry, just about cloud-free. One thing I will say that we're watching, a bit of wildfire smoke overnight and for tomorrow. Now through 6 o'clock, heat advisories issued for El Paso and Fremont County. Tomorrow, likely the warmest day of this heat wave. Denver, east of Evergreen, Boulder, and Fort Collins. Heat advisories again for Tuesday will be in effect. So take care of yourself, stay hydrated. It's probably a good day to avoid strenuous activity outside, if at all possible. Let's go through the next few days, break it down. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I've plotted your records here across the bottom. It's not quite record heat, but you do see our average is 90 degrees. We are 5 to 10 degrees above average. We are dry, so we are just stuck in this pattern day after day to an extent where it can be dangerous, especially to some more vulnerable favorable groups. Now, the western slope, 97 in Grand Junction for the day tomorrow. It's even hot up across the high country. You're talking some upper 70s, low mid 80s. Salida, for example, 89 degrees as the high for tomorrow. Upper 90s and some triple digits. Highway 50, for example, here. Lamar at 106, Pueblo at 103. Same trend will hold true, up 76. Jumping in now, 99 is what I'm forecasting for the metro area. That's 98 at the airport, triple digits, Brighton and Hudson. Stay hydrated. The sun's out in full force. Jumping in towards Larimer County, one area we'll watch closely. Loveland, another hot day. In fact, it's likely even hotter for tomorrow. So today, all the fire improvements we can get, we'll take as far as firefighters battling with that. One thing I did tell you, wildfire smoke. Watch as I put this into motion. Let's get up to the current speed. Southern Colorado, you get a nice little light to moderate burst. We just see minor impacts as you look on the horizon. What I will say is by tomorrow afternoon, a bit of your darker blues and greens, a bit more moderate smoke. It's really, though, we watch by the middle and end of the week where more dense smoke could arrive across much of the state. Thursday and Friday, some rain chances return, but it's looking more like a dry thunderstorm will be possible. Guys, that almost is a worse thing because we get lightning without all of the moisture. And as you do know, that can work to spark a fire. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Otherwise, through the extended forecast, relatively dry. And guys, we stay up above the 90-degree mark.
And thankfully, you said the winds have been cooperating with
the winds to this point. Let's cross our fingers. A few hours to go because overnight, I can tell you they'll be calm.
All right, Joe, thank you.
We continue following our breaking news with the wildfire burning west of Loveland. We will have updates.
And coming up next, we also check back in with our Denver Broncos.